Hey fam, we're back with another banger. What if Naruto joined Hogwarts and had harem with Fleur Delacour? So before we start, if you are craving adult mature NTENT, join my Patreon now, link are in the description box. Alright, enough talk, let's fire it up. All was peaceful in the village, hidden in the leaves, the birds chirping, people talking among themselves. Children laughing and playing carelessly. However, it was a different story in the Hokage Tower, where a meeting of the cages was taking place. I absolutely refuse, screamed a loud yet powerful, female voice. It is not your choice here, Tsunade-san, added in a monotone voice that belonged to Gaara the cage. But he was a shinobi of my village, replied Tsunade, the Hokage. He was, but now he is a shinobi of Suna. The debate was mostly between the two cages of Konoha and Suna. The debate was over a certain meeting with a surnamed Corniest Fudge or something like that. The Minister of Magic had requested that in order to strengthen the ties of the magic world to the elemental countries, the village leaders should send one young representative who will be attending one of the three best magical schools there, and in turn they would send over a mage to the elemental country to see how it would go, and if all went well they might in the future send more mages over and vice versa. Of course, this meeting sparked an emergency meeting with the 5 cages, in turn sparking another debate between Suna and Konoha, between a former ninja of Konoha who now lives in Suna. Let's see how it goes. Not to sound rude, Hokage-san, but Naruto is now a ninja of Suna and is no longer in affiliation with Konoha after you banished him, and he also has a background with magic, so that would make him an eligible choice. Gaara stated clearly and stared impassively at Tsunade. Fine. This argument is getting us nowhere, do whatever it is you like with your ninja, Tsunade replied, defeated. She sat down in her chair and rubbed her temples. Any objections? No raise of hands. The Raikage coughed into his hand, trying to relieve the tension in the room. Alright then, since no one has any more questions or objections, we will send him to the magical realm. The meeting of cages is now adjourned. Tsunade snapped her hand and immediately a team of Anbu shunshined into the room. Please escort the cages out. They all nodded and filed out of the room following the cages. Now alone in her office, Tsunade couldn't help but let a tear escape her eye. She remembered how painful it was to have been forced into banishing the one person she thought of as a brother. Wiping the annoying tear away, she could only think one thing before burying herself into the paperwork: karma is definitely out to get me. Walking ever so slowly down the path of Suna, Naruto Uzumaki took his time to take in the sights that he had seen every single day, but he never seemed to get tired of them. Many people greeted him, well, mostly women. He had bright blonde hair and 3 whisker marks adorning each side of his face. He never understood why females would look at him and blush. Some went right up to him and started flirting and calling him handsome, but he never actually considered himself attractive, since he was always ignored, scorned, and looked down on in his old village. Well, back to reminiscing. Over the past 3 years he had resided in Sunagakure after his banishment, after bringing Sasuke back after he had defected. He had just made it to the gate of his village and given Sasuke to a medic nin, but no. The villagers and councilmen saw those bruises on their precious Uchiha and flooded to Tsunade and asked for his head, completely ignoring the fist-sized hole in his chest. Though he was not executed because of his friends and those who liked him pleading for him, he was still banished for trying to get rid of the last Uchiha. Bastards, Naruto muttered. At least he wasn't left to wander, because Gaara had accepted him into his village with open arms, sorta. His thoughts interrupted as he spotted Gaara being escorted through the main gate by a team of Anbu. Naruto hurriedly ran up to them. Hey, Gaara. Gaara looked up to see a grinning Naruto in his face. Gaara gave a swift nod to the team, who then dispersed. Good afternoon, Naruto. Gaara acknowledged. How'd the meeting go? Naruto wondered. Gaara sighed. Better than what I expected. Was it about what that Corniest guy said? It's Cornelius, and yes, it was. Who'd you pick anyway? Naruto asked curiously. Gaara mentally cursed himself. He knew Naruto was going to ask sooner or later. Please make your way to my office and I shall tell you, Gaara said, heading to his office with Naruto in tow. What? Naruto started after hearing what Gaara had said. Of all people, you pick me. Sighed Naruto, this is for your own good, not mine. Well, I am not going. Naruto said, emphasizing his point by throwing his hands into the air. Either way, you don't have a choice whether you want to go or not, it is a mandatory mission. Replied Gaara sternly as he crossed his arms. Naruto hung his head in defeat. There was no way he would win against Gaara in these circumstances. Quote ellipsis 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 dot. When do I go? Naruto grumbled out angrily. Gaara got up from his seat and walked over to Naruto, putting a hand onto his shoulder. Naruto, I chose you for this mission, because it is dangerous times here right now with the Akatsuki hunting us down and a war against Oto and maybe even Iwa around the corner. This is for your safety. The school is a very safe place and the Akatsuki won't be able to find you there. You helped me out before, it's only right that I return the favor. Gaara said, giving Naruto a reassuring smile. I understand and thank you, Gaara. Naruto said, giving a true smile, which was the first in years because of how shocked and broken he was after the exile. He took his hand off Naruto and took a seat again, looking over his papers. Naruto, seeing as how all was said and done, made way to the door. Opening the door, he heard Gaara say, "You are to be at the main gate at noon in 2 days, so pack up your supplies." Gaara said in his usual monotone. "Okay, but I better be able to return for summer, Christmas, and holidays." Gaara starred, before saying, "Of course." Naruto stood right outside the village gate wearing a dark red t-shirt and black baggy pants, and his arms crossed with his baggage laid on the ground beside him. He had spent the past 2 days studying the concept of magic in the 3 best-known schools to teach magic. There were many questions in his mind after reading the materials. Was he really supposed to use a thin piece of wood to protect himself there? Why do people call this Voldemort guy, he who must not be named, or you know who? And the most important question of all, what kind of a wuss can't call someone by their name? Ah, you must be Naruto. The elderly man ran his hand through his beard. Naruto turned around to see a man with a freakish white beard wearing a long robe walking to him with Gaara beside him. Naruto and the man shook hands, Naruto saying, "I am. And you must be Dumbledore, Albus Dumbledore, pleasure to meet you. And you." Dumbledore pulled up the sleeves of his robe and checked the time. "It seems we must be going now, time is of the essence." Dumbledore pulled something out of his other sleeve. It was a stick, wand. "Goodbye, Gaara." Naruto said his farewell before Dumbledore flicked his wand and disappeared to who knows where. Gaara stared at the empty space. "Be safe, Naruto." "Whoa, what is this place?" Naruto asked as the two walked down Diagon Alley. Naruto had never seen such a place with so many shops that sold such, how to word it, grotesque things in his entire life. "This, my boy, is Diagon Alley, the best place to find supplies and anything for your wizardry needs. This will be where we will get your books, uniform, and wand," Dumbledore said, greeting by passers. "Excuse me, Dumbledore, but from what I have read, mages start the first year of school at age 11, I'm nearly 15 years old. Aren't I a bit old to start in first year?" Naruto asked. "Yes, we have already sorted that out. You will be going into year 5 as your cage had told me that you learned all the materials in 2 days. So why not?" "So, I will be skipping 4 years of school here?" Naruto asked excitedly. He was excited about this magic stuff, but he hated school very much. "Yes, you will be skipping 4 years of school," Dumbledore said, chuckling. He noticed several people looking at a display in a window. He also went to see what they were looking at. Naruto looked into the window and saw a beautifully crafted flying broom that he read was used most commonly in a game called Quidditch, which he only knew a few things about, and as transportation devices. "Look at it. The newest broom developed, the Nimbus 2001. One boy said to the other. "The fastest one to date. But look how much it costs." Naruto also stood there for a moment marveling at it until Dumbledore noticed he was gone and came back to collect him. They stopped at a shop that had a sign saying, "Ollivander's Wand Shop," at the top. "Ah, here we are, Ollivander's, best wand maker of all time. This is where we will get you your wand," Dumbledore said. They walked in and saw an old man behind stacks of long boxes. He noticed them and welcomed them. "My, Professor Dumbledore, I hadn't seen you in a while, and who is this young man?" the man asked, shaking Dumbledore's hand, eyeing Naruto. Dumbledore put his hands onto Naruto's shoulders. "Nice to see you again, Mr. Ollivander. This is Naruto Uzumaki and he is here to get his first wand. Mr. Ollivander circled around Naruto. Which is your wand arm? He asked Naruto. My right, I guess. Naruto stated as he put his right arm up. Ollivander stood him and took out a tape measure and measured his arm before he walked into the back and grabbed a box. He took out a brown wand and gave it to Naruto. Maple 9.5-inch, Threstal hair. Take the wand and move it in a circular motion. He did and nothing happened. Ollivander immediately took the wand and grabbed another from the back. Naruto had tried 3 other different wands but with no prevail. What an interesting one. You are one of the few people whom I have had a hard time finding the right wand for, especially that Harry Potter. I wonder. Ollivander said, walking to the back once more and grabbed another box. He opened the box to reveal a beautiful long dark, ebony wand with swirls of dark, fiery red and icy blue all around the wand. Naruto grabbed the wand and flicked it like how Dumbledore did before. He felt a breeze and a warm sensation build up in him, his hair moving with the breeze. The tip of his wand erupted in a blue light, sending out blue sparks before disappearing overall. I guess we found the right wand for you. My, how interesting. That wand is one of the few that I have made with more than one core, and remarkably one of the others was given to another Uzumaki. Kushina, if I remember correctly. Curious indeed. Well, the wand does choose its master. A dark holly, 11-inch with 2 special cores of a piece of fur from a fierce fire fox that is part of an extinct breed of foxes. A beauty indeed, and that fox gave me quite some trouble, though nearly ripping my arm out of my arm socket, and also the core of a piece of scale from the legendary ice dragon, Hirenmaru. With the ice affinity more dominant and the fire affinity recessive, but I have a feeling that you can bring out that recessive part of the wand and use both to your advantage. Very nice and supple. It seems that is done. Next we get your uniform and books. Thank you, Mr. Ollivander. My pleasure, Professor Dumbledore. Come again, Mr. Ollivander said, waving to them as they left. Let's get your books and cauldron, then we can get you fitted for your uniform. Dumbledore said, leading Naruto to Flourish and Blots to buy his school supplies and books. After doing so, they went to have Naruto get his uniform. This is my uniform, Naruto said, looking at himself in the mirror. After they had gotten all of Naruto's supply, they had Naruto fitted for his uniform. Dumbledore found it quite amusing though. Naruto's uniform consisted of blood-red robes with a heavy cloak of furs with silver fastenings hanging off his shoulders, black boots made of dragon hide, and a fur cassock hat on his head. Naruto was also provided with a white button-down shirt, a red vest and a black and red striped tie, and black school pants and a red button-down cardigan, though he decided to just wear what he was wearing before underneath because it was too hot. Naruto was feeling very uncomfortable in his uniform. He was even starting to sweat. Scratch that, he was sweating a waterfall now. Professor Dumbledore, excuse me. But what is it like -20 degrees there? Naruto asked, taking the hat off, his hair sticking to his forehead. He ran his hand through his hair. Weather can be pretty harsh there, Naruto. It is located in colder regions and fires aren't usually lit unless during special occasions or magical purposes. Dumbledore said as he and Naruto walked out of the shop. Naruto had decided to wear his uniform instead of changing later on, though he also regretted that decision. I also had someone pick up a gift for you too, Naruto. He should be here any moment now, Dumbledore stated. Professor Dumbledore, over there. Someone grunted. They turned and Naruto couldn't believe his eyes. In front of him was this massive man with black hair and matching beard. He was holding a cage with a little red fox sleeping in it. Wow, is that for me? Naruto said, getting a closer look at the little fellow. It was snoring peacefully in its cage. It had beautiful red fur and black paws. Yes, I had Hagrid here pick out a pet for you since students are allowed one pet for the school year. And I thought a fox would be appropriate, Dumbledore said, thanking Hagrid. Fine choice too. Poor little fella must have been really tired too, Hagrid said, handing the cage to Naruto to hold. Hagrid eyed Naruto's uniform for a moment. So he'd be going to that school. Hagrid saw it putting Naruto's things onto the cart. Dumbledore took a look at his watch. Best be going now, no reason to miss the train. He took out his wand and moved it and they were enveloped in a bright white light. They appeared at the station and Naruto couldn't help but be awestruck by the train in front of him. The train was huge. It was an old-looking train that was red and silver. There was a golden statue of a two-headed eagle on the tip of the train. Hagrid put Naruto's luggage into the compartments. While he was doing this, Naruto was conversing with Dumbledore. "Professor Dumbledore, you are the headmaster of this other magic school, Hogwarts, right?" Naruto asked. "Yes, may I ask why you want to know?" "I just wanted to know if I can visit your school sometime later." Naruto suggested. "Of course. You are always welcome to visit and I'll talk to your headmaster about it." Dumbledore pushed him forward. "Don't forget, you go in with the first years." Dumbledore reminded him. "All right. Thank you, Professor, and thank you to you too, Hagrid. I hope I see you two again," Naruto said, putting his hat back on and stepped aboard the train. He waved at the two of them as the train left the station. "He's in NTE resting one, ain't he, Professor?" Hagrid said, watching the train depart. Dumbledore nodded. "He definitely is. So he'll be attendant at school." "Yes, I had to persuade Karkaroff quite a bit. But after telling him Naruto's background and how he is a very mighty and strong boy, Karkaroff finally agreed quite happily at that." Dumbledore said, stroking his beard. "Ah, from what you, old me. His ground, eames very sad, and dark." "Very, he and Harry." Dumbledore said gravely. "Yeah, he and Ari would, ake great friends. They would, and I hope that when they meet, that they can help each other, for they both have suffered so much." Hagrid thought about it for a moment. Wasn't his mum the Uzumaki? Yes, a very clever and powerful witch she was, that Kushina. A shame she had died so young, and her husband too. Minato was never a wizard, but he always gave off a kind yet powerful aura, impressing even myself. I expect great things from that Naruto. Naruto had just walked inside the train and he thought it was time to go into one of the compartments, hopefully to make new friends. He walked up to one of the compartments and opened it. Inside there were 4 people, 2 boys and 2 girls. They were all wearing the same uniform as him and they were about his age, except that the girls had taken off their Cossack hats and they had fur hand mufflers on. One of the boys had a buzz cut and the other fair-length hair. They all looked at him and one of the girls said, "Sorry, but this compartment is full." "Oh, sorry." Naruto apologized as he closed the door. As he walked away he heard them murmuring to each other in hushed tones. "I never saw him before. Is he new?" "I don't know, he didn't look like a first year." He tried the next compartment. Inside was one boy. He had a buzz cut and he wore the uniform, his hat next to him. He was staring out the window, bored with his head propped on his hands. He looked toward Naruto. "Is this seat empty?" Naruto asked politely. "Yes. Please sit," the boy said politely, gesturing toward the seat in front of him. Naruto walked in, closing the door and sitting opposite to the boy. Naruto also took off his hat and placed it next to him. "You don't look very familiar, are you?" "No?" the boy asked. Yes, I'm an exchange student from the elemental countries." Naruto said. "Elemental countries? As in ninjas and stuff?" "Yes." "Interesting," the boy said, rubbing his chin. "I'm Naruto Uzumaki, and you are?" Victor Crumb." "Nice to meet you, Naruto." The newly named Victor said, holding out his hand at Naruto. "Nice meeting you too," Naruto said, taking his hand and giving him a firm shake. "So how long is it till we get to the school?" Naruto asked, regretting that he forgot to ask Dumbledore the school's name. "They will be there in a couple of hours," Victor said. Victor, seeing the strange look on Naruto's face, asked, "Is something the matter?" "No, it's just I had forgotten to ask what school it is I will be attending." "Do you mind telling me?" Naruto contorted his face. The boy kindly answered, "The school they are going to is the Durmstrang Institute." "Okay, so we will be there in a few hours." "Yes, but until then I think they should get to know each other better since the ride will be very long." "I'll start." Victor started and Naruto nodded. "I am a half-blood wizard, my moth. A muggle, and my father a pure-blood wizard, and I am 16 years old. I am from Bulgaria where I grew up until I started attending Durmstrang, which is also in Bulgaria. I also enjoy playing Seeker on the Quidditch team at the school," Victor said, gesturing to Naruto after he finished his introduction. Where to start? I'm not really sure about my blood status, but I am from the village of Suna-in. the elemental countries, and I will be attending Durmstrang as a transfer in the 5th year. I am 15 years old, I'm an orphan, and I am a Chunin. Naruto said, earning a perplexed look from Victor. Chunin? Victor inquired. Oh right. In my country there are quite a few rankings you can get. You start off at Academy Student, then you continue on to the other rankings, Genin, Chunin, Junin, Anbu, A.N.D. Cage, who is the leader of the village. You can even be a Sanin in Konoha. My sensei, Jiraiya, is a Sanin. Cool. And about your blood status, Durmstrang only admits pure bloods and half-bloods, they don't admit muggle-borns. So you've old either be pure blood or half-blood. Victor said. They continued to talk, asking each other questions about their home, and Naruto showing Victor some jutsu and ninja techniques, as Victor dubbed it, cool ninja moves. Laughing at stories of misadventures and pranks. They both listened intently to each other when they talked about their life stories. Victor sat, looking amused. When Naruto told him that he used to love pranking people and that he was the prank king. But Victor frowned when he heard the life Naruto had to live through, being alone and rejected. And that Naruto was banished from his old village after risking his life to save a friend from darkness. The train started to slow down, and when they looked out the window they could see a four-story tall castle with lakes and mountains beside it, all covered in snow including the castle. The conductor's voice rang loud and clear. We have reached our destination, Durmstrang. Thank you for traveling with us. Please make your way off the bus calmly and please leave your luggage here, they will be taken separately to the school. Thank you and have a wonderful year. They put their hats on and waited outside. For the first time Naruto actually realized that it was freezing out there and how dark it was. Now he understood why they had to wear the issued uniform. A tall man with dark hair, a small mustache, and penetrating eyes walked up to them. In a cold and loud voice he said, I am Tolga Safer, I am the headmaster's aide and flight instructor, now first years follow me and the remainder of you wait here for your assigned teachers. Naruto turned to Victor, well, I have to go now. See you inside, Naruto said, following Professor Safer. Victor waved, thinking, you are the first person I ever met who knows loneliness, I hope they end up in the same house. Naruto and the first years were led into the castle after traveling by boat, which was awkward for Naruto having to sit with 11-year-olds. And reaching the other side and heading into the castle on a drawbridge. Once inside, Naruto could see many armor statues and moving pictures that were talking to each other. He saw that a few torches were lit for the purpose of welcoming the newer students. Thank God. He was chilled through the bone, not really, but it was still cold. He definitely regretted not wearing his vest now. Now, you all wait here as I go in and check on something. Tolga said, walking through the large doors with an emblem of a two-headed eagle on it. The first years began to whisper excitedly to one another. Some stared at Naruto. Some even openly pointed at him too. Isn't he a bit old to just be attending? He doesn't look like he's from this country. He looks hot. Isn't he a bit old for you? He looks like a 5th year. Quote, shish, he might hear you. I think it's a bit late to say that. Were just a few of the whispers being spread, though with his sensitive hearing he heard them all. He heard a loud yawn in his head and some mumbling. That was the best rest I ever had in centuries. Kyuubi said, stretching himself out inside Naruto's mindscape. Nice to hear from you again, Kyuubi. Naruto thought sarcastically. Oh, Kit, how was the train ride? Kyuubi asked in a bit of a daze from just waking up, and a bottle of booze magically appeared out of nowhere like magic. And started gulping it down, throwing the bottle away when he finished. Fine, I met this nice guy, Victor. Good for you, I think. Hey, the Tolga fellow is back. You should probably get back and I'll just take another nice long nap. Zzzzzzzzz, Kyuubi said, falling fast asleep. Naruto rolled his eyes and cut the communication off. Now you all are to follow me into the hall, do you understand? Good. Then, you will be sorted into one of the 4 houses, understood? Very well, Tolga said, opening the double doors and leading them into the hall. They all walked in and Naruto noticed that there were 4 tables and that the students had either a picture of a basilisk, dragon, phoenix, or an eagle on the back of their cloaks and on the upper right of their chest. The hall was dimly lit and it gave a weary aura. There were also banners hung on the walls with the 4 animals and houses. At the end of the hall there was also a long table with 7 people sitting at it and an empty seat. The man in the middle must be the headmaster. Naruto thought as he looked at the man. He was wearing light red robes and a large fur cloak, his hair black as was his mustache. He was smiling but his eyes remained cold and unmoving. He gave off a very ruthless aura. They all stopped at the front of the hall. The headmaster stood up gesturing for the students to be quiet. I would like to welcome our new students and welcome back our older students. Now as you all know I am the headmaster of Durmstrang, Igor Karkaroff. As you all know, you will be sorted into either of the 4 houses, Ignatius, Dracorong, Avelin, or Ormondor. To honor our founders, Ivan Ignatius, Damian Dracorong, Alicia Avelin, and Odin Ormondor. Now let's get our first years sorted before we start the feast. Karkaroff said and the students began to applaud loudly. Safer had brought a large basin of what looked like black water to the front and placed it on a table. Now as I call your name you will take this pin and prick you. Our finger using the pin and place a drop of blood into the basin. A flame will erupt from the basin and the flame will show your memories before turning either blue, green, red, or black, symbolizing your house. Afric, Timothy. A thin and short boy walked up and pricked his finger and winced before he put a drop of blood into the basin. And white flames formed above the water, showing his birth and his other memories. His 5th birthday, playing with friends and others. The images dispersed and the flames turned green before receding into the basin. The image of an eagle burned itself onto the boy's cloak and front right of his robe in gold. Avelin. The table to the far left erupted into cheers, welcoming their new member. It continued on, with the first years varying in colors and houses. Blue for the Dracorong house with a dragon symbolizing it, red for Ignatius, a phoenix, black for Ormondor, a basilisk, and green for Avelin, an eagle. The last student was finally finished and Naruto was the only one left standing in the front of the hall. Once again, the students erupted into whispers. Naruto could feel the many eyes boring into his back. Naruto tried to look around to find Victor. He finally spotted him sitting at the second table from the left, next to the Avelin house table. The table's color was red and gold and he could see the golden profile of a phoenix on Victor's cloak. Ignatius, Naruto thought, putting the pieces together. Victor saw him staring and gave a polite smile. While this was going on, up at the staff table, the teachers and Karkaroff were also discussing the matter. After a few minutes of talking, Karkaroff stood from the table and silenced the hall, a strange glint in his eyes. Students, faculty, it is my honor to welcome a brand new transfer student to our school. Young Naruto Uzumaki here is from the elemental countries and is a negotiation to exchange a mage for one of their own. He will be attending our school until he graduates in 7th year. Since he is nearly 15 years of age, I found it more appropriate for him to start in 5th year to be among peers his age. Be sure to welcome him warmly. Now let's get Naruto sorted, shall we? Karkaroff said, signaling to Naruto to go up to Professor Safer. Karkaroff sat back down in his seat, wondering which house Naruto would be in, as were others wondering too. Naruto pricked his index finger and dropped some blood into the basin, before his finger healed, but he covered it up before anyone saw. Flames erupted showing his birth, when he was beaten in his early childhood, going to the academy. Meeting Iruka and classmates, his fight in the Chunin exams, retrieving Sasuke, his banishment and being welcomed into Suna. Naruto clenched his fists, all his happy memories were being shown. But so were his most sad and painful memories. The images disappeared leaving behind a red flame, which receded soon after. He saw a picture of a golden phoenix burning onto the right part of his chest on his robes. And thought the same was happening to his cloak. Ignatius. The Ignatius table started cheering and shouting, especially from the girls as Naruto joined the table, sitting next to a 5th year boy and Victor, who welcomed him along with others who were happy to have a new member and that it was the new transfer too. Welcome to the Ignatius house, Naruto. Victor said, patting him on the back. Thanks. Karkaroff once again stood up. Now that our last person is sorted, I would like to introduce the teachers. Charms, Nicole Blaine, Potions, Joseph Fernando, Herbology, Ian Fern, History of Magic. Vincent Zelenka, Dark Arts, Raider Halvard, Transfiguration, Eula Sashka and Flight Instructor and Quidditch Referee, Tolga Safer. Now, let the feast commence. He waved his Wand and all sorts of food appeared on all the tables and candles appeared floating all over the hall, turning the dim hall into a largely lit hall. Dig in, Karkaroff said, sitting back down discussing some arrangements with the teachers. With Tolga sitting to the headmaster's right. Back at the Ignatius table, Naruto was piling up all the food he could take. He wanted to try all the things he had never seen before. He noticed that the boy sitting next to him was shoving everything he could into his mouth. He looked up, noticing that someone was looking at him. He quickly swallowed the food and gave an apologetic look before introducing himself. "Hello. My name is Milos Polyakov. Nice to meet you," he said, wiping some food off his mouth with his sleeve and offered his hand. "Nice to meet you, Milos, I'm Naruto. I hope we can be friends," Naruto said, grinning and taking his offered hand. "Definitely," Milos said, resuming his eating food and who knows what staining his uniform. Naruto stared at his own plate. Maybe I shouldn't have taken so much food, Naruto thought, sweat dropping as he stared at his overstuffed plate. He took some of it to start, before he noticed a short, black-haired boy wearing round and thick-rimmed glasses sitting opposite to him eating while studying a book. "Hey, what are you doing over there?" Naruto asked, looking at the book. "I'm just looking over some materials for this year," the boy said, not taking his eyes off his book. "Well, I'm Naruto, nice to meet ya," Naruto said. "I'm Kaiser Matai. Nice meeting you," Kaiser said, flipping the page. "Are you a 5th year too?" "Yes, and I hope we will be seeing each other in class and in our dorms," he said, shutting the book and conversing with the person beside him. "Do you like the food here, Naruto?" Victor asked. "Some are quite delicious while some are unique," Naruto said, poking some of the things on his plate. "I also see that you have made some new friends," Victor said, eyeing Milos and Kaiser. "Yes, all the students here seem very nice. Some are, others are not so much," Milos said, eyeing some students at the Ormondor table. Naruto continued to talk with Victor and Milos about the school, Quidditch, and the beginning of terms, and desserts soon followed afterward until Karkaroff announced that dinner was over and that they were to go to their dormitories and get a good night's rest. And that breakfast would start at 6 o'clock and would end at 9. Then they were to go to their assigned classes. He also said Quidditch tryouts would start in 2 weeks and that the basement and the lower areas of the castle were off limits to everyone. They were led to their dorms with Ignatius located in the tower in the west wing of the castle, and members of the house were to give a password. And theirs happened to be, Immortals Sumus, and if you forgot the password then you were out of luck until someone who knows the password lets you in. They had given the password to a golden foe, Nick's statue with both wings crossed over its chest, and if given the correct password, its wings would open, revealing a passage into the Ignatius common room. Naruto had walked into the boys' dorms, climbed the stairs from the common room and turning right with the girls' dorm on the left, and walking into the third room in the dorm and saw 8 4-poster beds with 4 aligned next to each other there on both sides of the wall, and that his luggage and cage with a cloth covering it was right on his bed, which was next to the window, with Victor's bed next to it and Milos, opposite of Naruto's bed. The room itself was decorated with red and gold. Naruto put the cage next to his bed and luggage onto the chest at the foot of his bed, changed into shorts and a t-shirt, and crawled into the Sumu hat warm bed after saying goodnight to Victor and Milos. Naruto's last thought were, this should be an interesting school year, here at Durmstrang. He quickly drifted into a long-awaited blissful sleep, not hearing Kyuubi say, "It definitely will be interesting now that you are in the magical community." Ha 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 ha, cough cough, oh god, here comes the hangover. "Tell me again, Victor, why we have so much homework?" Naruto asked as they walked out of his history of magic class. "Come on, it is not that much homework," Victor said, looking at his timetable. Naruto's left eye twitched as he sent a non-believing glare at Victor. "Are you kidding me? We only had 3 classes so far and we were given 10-page papers for all 3. Naruto threw his hands into the air, exasperated. Yes, 5th years have tons of homework on the first day." Victor looked at Naruto for a second before looking at his timetable again. "They have potions next with the Dracorons, lunch, a long break, then dark arts and flying class." Naruto lightened up at the thought of flying lessons before Naruto remembered that he didn't really know the basics of flying yet, and it was 5th year. How do you fly?" Yuto asked, embarrassingly scratching his head. Victor looked at him. It's actually very easy, anyone can fly. But you have to grip it tightly because the first time I mounted a broom, I flew off easy. But I wasn't holding it firmly, so I slid right off the back and broke my arm and Milos' leg after falling on him. Naruto stared at him. Was that supposed to make me feel any better? Victor grinned at him. Well, I truly sucked back in my first year, but I practiced day and night and you know that. I play as the seeker for our Quidditch team and I'm being recruited into the national Bulgarian Quidditch team too. And hey, if you join our team and if you play well, I might be able to vouch for you into the national team. Victor said proudly. Naruto looked at him with round eyes with tears almost falling in chibi mode. How inspiring, Naruto commented with fake enthusiasm. Damn you, Victor replied. Naruto started laughing. Well, you did make me want to join the house team now though. Hey guys, shouted a voice behind them in the courtyard. They turned to see Milos rushing after them. Yo, Milos. Hi, said Naruto and Victor simultaneously. Milos caught up to them saying, we have potions now. I definitely think Professor Fernando is out to get me. Milos looked crestfallen as they approached the classroom. Well, you do suck at potions and you blew up 10 of his C. Aldrins plus the Vone you bought for the year for the past 4 years. Victor said in an all-knowing voice. Naruto burst out laughing. You blew haha up over 10 cauldrons. Wiping tears from his eyes, Naruto, Victor, and Milos walked straight in and took the last table in the back. In glided a brown-haired wizard with a short and straight nose and crooked teeth. Good morning class. I am Professor Fernando, and as some of you know, I was sorted into the Avelin house when I was here, which would be centuries ago. Professor Fernando said, cracking a smile showing off his pearly yet crooked white teeth. Some laughed at his joke. Others stared boredly. Alright, now I want you to open your textbook and read over the instructions on making the Wolfsbane potion and you will start to make tea, and the perfect one I will use for a werewolf friend of mine. Though I do not expect anyone's to be perfect because of how highly advanced this potion is, I do advise you to try not to melt, burn and or blow up the cauldron. Fernando said, looking at Milos in particular, who shrank in his seat under Professor Fernando's mighty glare. Half an hour later a large explosion could be heard and seen in the potions classroom, and 2 yells could be heard through the ash and smoke that enveloped the entire class. Polyakov. Sorry, Professor. When all ash, debris, smoke and everything else had cleared away. Milos' short hair was now singed at the front and smoking. Everyone glared at him because they were all covered in ash and soot. Fernando shook his head. Milos, you weren't even at the part where you were to heat the potion, and somehow you've amazed me by blowing up your cauldron. Again. Now class, finish up your potions and I will come around to take a look. Fernando said, brushing soot from his robes. He walked over to all the students telling them either they did well, good effort, or needs a bit work. Unless you were Milos, then he would have stood there and glared at you for 5 minutes before giving you a detention slip. He walked over to Victor's potion. Nice job Victor, but you seem to have overheated the potion. He silently walked over to Naruto's cauldron and his eyes widened. Oh my. It seems that Naruto had been able to concoct a perfect Wolfsbane potion. Naruto, my boy, have you ever made this potion before? No, not really. Naruto answered nervously. Well, you did a wonderful job. I hope that you can help out Milos with his brewing sometime. I must tell Headmaster that we have a natural potions master amidst us. Professor Fernando said, sounding giddy with excitement. Not what you were expecting for a potions master, were you? Much to everyone's relief, the bell had rung, meaning it was the end of potions class and time for lunch and a break. The 3 were the first to rush out. Thank God we're done. I'm starving too, Milos said, stretching and yawning. Victor stared at him. Milos, you're always hungry. True. They had quickly approached the great hall and saw many others were already there. They took a seat at their table, digging into whatever they could reach. Naruto, with a half-filled mouth of food, asked Victor, will we be doing anything special this year? Victor did a thinking pose and rubbed his chin. I think they are taking ROWLs this year. We're taking OOWLs this year. Naruto exclaimed, I don't care. Now half the stuff that's going to be on it. It's not until the end of the year though. Victor said, trying to calm him down. You can also take these other classes besides the ones they have no, like arithmancy, astronomy and so on. There are 12 subjects you can take, and after you pass your OWLs you will be taking NEWTs in the 7th year, and you need 5 NEWTs to be able to apply for OR if you wanted to become one. Wait, we only have so many hours in a day, how would we be able to attend all the classes? Naruto asked before an idea struck him like lightning. I could easel. Why make clones of myself to go to the other classes I have? Naruto thought. You will need a teacher's permission and the headmaster's permission, and they will ask the ministry to provide you with a time turner. Are you taking extra classes? Naruto asked Victor and Milos. Victor shook his head. No, I don't really want to tire myself out. Victor and Naruto turned to Milos. Milos grinned. I'm only taking a few extra classes. Milos said, patting his belly. Well, I'm full. Hey, I have an idea. What? Naruto and Victor asked simultaneously. Milos stood up and pumped his fists into the air. While Naruto and Victor and many others stared at him. How about we go take a ride on our broomstick during our break? Let me hear it. How awesome am I? Naruto grinned. Very awesome, so let's go. They all grabbed their bag and rushed toward their dormitories. Naruto followed Victor and Milos into their room. Milos grabbed his Nimbus 2001 and Victor also grabbed his. Victor also reached into his chest and pulled out another broomstick with the words, Nimbus 2000, on it. Naruto, you can use my old Nimbus 2000 to fly, 'cause my grandmother had bought me the Nimbus 2001 for the New Year, but I kept my old one anyway. He threw that broomstick at Naruto, who caught it easily in his right hand. Naruto marveled at it would be his first time flying. The thought riveted through him. The trio rushed out of the castle as fast as they could out into the Quidditch pitch to see that it was unoccupied. Milos mounted his broom and lifted off first. He soared around before hovering at STE 80 height, waiting for Victor and Naruto. Down on the ground, Victor was coaching Naruto on how to mount the broomstick. Alright, so as I have said, you just grab on tightly and try to keep balanced on the broom and kick off the ground. Let me show you first. Victor mounted his Nimbus 2001, showing Naruto that he was gripping tightly, and he kicked both feet off the ground, soaring into the air next to Milos. Naruto too mounted his broom and steadied his grip, excitement overwhelming him and permeating through every inch of his body. He cleared his head and kicked off the ground, soaring into the air with the two. This is awesome, Naruto thought, feeling weightless in the air. Let's see you do a lap around the stadium, Naruto. Milos said, grinning, seeing him enjoying his first ever flight experience. Naruto steered the broomstick by just simply and gently moving his hands and soared like a majestic eagle around the entire stadium, twice. What a rush! Naruto hollered at the top of his lungs, feeling the wind through his hair and the sun beaming on his face. Woohoo! Soon they wasted the entire break playing catch with a hacky sack that Milos brought along with him. They all descended again to the ground and slung their broomsticks over their shoulders. It was 2 minutes until their break was over. Oh shit, we're not going to make it in time if they walk by feet, they'll be late to dark arts class. Victor exclaimed, taking his broomstick and mounting it. Naruto saw this. Hey, Victor, what are you doing? We have to fly to the castle, it will be much quicker. Won't we get in trouble? No, hurry up. All three of them mounted their brooms and took off toward the castle. Naruto still felt the excitement in him, but he felt hasty also. Naruto glided to Victor's side. How are we getting into our room? The rushing wind and his blood pounding into his ear slightly impairing his hearing. I left a window open just in case. They slowed down as they approached the West Tower. Victor soared in first, followed closely by Naruto and Milos. Hurry, we only have 1 minute left, Milos said, grabbing his bag. They rushed down the hall, passing moving portraits and paintings along the way. They made it into the classroom to see the only table left was in the front and middle row. They sat down and wiped imaginary sweat off of their brow. Naruto looked around the classroom to see if anything stood out so he could remember the classrooms. Many things stood out. 1 was the many posters of national Quidditch teams, 2 was the many miniature figures of broomsticks and figurines of famous players, and 3. He didn't know how to point it out, but it was quite noticeable that the room was painted bright orange. A loud bang meant that the teacher was walking in right now. They all turned to watch a young man with messy black hair. He looked to be maybe in his earlier mid-20s, striding into the room with a large grin plastered on his face. He walked up to the chalkboard and wrote, "Professor Raider Halvard. Hello class. I am Professor Raider Halvard. You may refer to me as Professor Halvard, Professor Raider, or just Raider. Most of you will remember me from last year. But indeed this year we have a new student." Raider walked up to Naruto and looked down at him. "Hello, would you care to tell me anything about yourself, anything at all?" He looked at Naruto, his grin turning into a gentle and warm smile. "I'm Naruto. I like training, flying, and magic. I dislike watching my friends die or get hurt and other things that you don't need to know. My hobbies are practicing jutsus and spells," Naruto said nervously looking around the class. "Well, nice to meet you Naruto. I hope you find my class enjoyable." "Alrighty class, as a treat we will be doing practical magic today out in the courtyard, and today we will be doing practical magic and defensive magic instead of the boring dark magic theory. So, up and out. Grab your bags and wands now," Raider said, filing them out of the classroom and into the courtyard. Once they were all located in the yard, Raider stood in front of them rocking back and forth saying, "Now class, we will be learning how to do the advanced Patronus spells." Many oohs and ahs were heard, but it is advanced because of the concentration needed. The biggest factor to conjuring up a Patronus is to think of the happiest memory or memories you had ever experienced. As most of you will know, the main use of the Patronus is to ward off dementors and dark beings. Let me demonstrate it first, watch carefully. Ydar took out his wand and spoke loud and clearly, "Expecto Patronum." Out of the tip of his wand erupted a mist of silvery blue that took a solid or semi-solid form of a hawk that soared high in the air, cawing as it flew above the students. After the hawk finished, it was expelled and Raider turned back toward them. Though you could not see, in my head I was thinking of a very happy memory and rough that I was able to concentrate it into a Patronus. Now, some of you have seen that my Patronus took on the form of a hawk. It was a hawk because I am most compatible with the hawk, or it is somehow affiliated with me. I really hope that at least one person will be able to conjure one today, though it will most likely be formless, but remember, your happiest memory and try your best. The class separated within a few feet apart. "Expecto Patronum" was heard from many people, but nothing happened. Raider went around helping. "Happy memories guys, the happiest one you can think of." "Expecto Patronum," Naruto exclaimed, but to now prevail. He had thought of his first flying experience, but it was not strong and happy enough, he figured. Naruto stood there concentrating. Happy memory, happy memory. What is my happy memory? Naruto thought silently. He thought of his first flying experience and meeting Victor, Milos, Kaiser, Reader and everyone else that he had found precious. His memory immediately went back to his days in Konoha, being on Team 7, having Sasuke and Sakura as teammates, Kakashi and Jiraiya as his teachers. "Alright, happy, 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 happy," he chanted in his head. He closed his eyes and memories overwhelmed him. "You, pass." Kakashi telling him and his teammates that they were an official ninja team. "You finally did it, Gaki." Jiraiya congratulating him on his successful Rasengan. "Well, D-Dobi, I don't know why I saved you." Sasuke saving him in Haku's ice mirrors. "Can I treat you to ramen?" Sakura treating him to ramen. "My name is Milos. Nice to meet you." Meeting Milos. "I'm Kaiser Matai. Nice meeting you." Meeting Kaiser. Victor Crumb. "Nice to meet you, Naruto." And meeting Victor for the first time on the train. He felt the sensation of his first flight blending in with those memories, creating the happiest memory he had ever felt in his life. He felt confident, strong, able to do the spell. Poising his wand outward, he exclaimed, "Expecto Patronum." The same effect with the silver blue mist came out of his wand and began to take a corporeal form. The class paused and became silent, and so did Raider as they watched Naruto producing the Patronus. They watched in wonder as it began to take form. The mist fog was turning into a corporeal fox. Not surprising, is it? Well, I think foxes are awesome. The fox looked around with its misty gaze and walked up to Naruto and nuzzled his hand. That was when Naruto noticed it had more than one tail. The fox started running around to the others and let them pet him and jogged back to Naruto and returning to the tip of his wand. Magnificent. A full corporeal Patronus. Let's give a round of applause for Naruto. Raider said, clapping his hands, and the class joined in. Alright, now, back to your work. He walked up to Naruto. That was amazing, Naruto. Raider exclaimed, praising him and going back to yelling, happy, happy, happy. Naruto walked over to where Victor was. How is yours coming along, Victor? Victor had his eyes clamped shut, deep in concentration. Fine, I just came up with my happy memory. I'll try. No. Victor put his wand and his arm out, exclaiming, Expecto Patronum. His wand burst with the silvery mist, but it looked more like a field of mist, which meant it did not take a corporeal form. It stayed like that for a while before dispersing into the air. That was a wonderful try, Victor. It did not take a form, but it looked strong. You just need to keep practicing the spell. Raider said, looking at his watch. Oh dear, it seems like this period is over. For homework, groans and moans are cued. For homework, I will not give you any assignments besides practicing your Patronus. Dismissed, the class dispersed to go to their next class. Milos joined the duo. You did great, Naruto. I wouldn't have thought you'd conjure up a fox. Yours was cool too, Victor. Milos said, walking next to Naruto and Victor. Flying next, woohoo. Naruto and Victor grinned ear to ear. Milos sure was the epiphany for the words, excited, and exuberant. 999 duovigintillion 999 unvigintillion 999 vigintillion 999 novemdecillion 999 octodecillion 999 septendecillion 999 sextecillion 999 quindecillion 999 quatuordecillion 999 tridecillion 999 duodecillion 999 undecillion 999 decillion 999 nonillion 999 octillion 999 septillion 999 sextillion 999 quintillion 999 quadrillion 999 trillion 999 billion 999 million 999,999. They were, once again, standing in the Quidditch pitch with Professor Safer staring at each one of them, just trying to dare anyone to stare at him for more than 2 seconds. They all had their respective brooms with them, though in Naruto's case, he had to borrow Victor's Nimbus 2000 again. As you know, I am Professor Tolga Safer. You will refer to me as Professor Safer. To start the class, want you all to warm up by doing laps around the pitch, and when you are done, you will partner up in threes and you will use these small hacky sacks and fly around, passing it to each other. This will enhance your perception of objects in motion, agility, hand-eye coordination, and help keen your eyesight. Start your laps. They all took off, and the rush once again overwhelmed Naruto's entire being. He felt invincible. He felt so energetic he flew from the back right up to the front where Victor and Milos were flying. The others were lagging behind, trying to talk to each other. This class seems very easy, Naruto said, adjusting to the wind roaring into his ears. Yeah, Professor Safer always has us do the same routine, though he mixes it up sometimes. Let's finish this lap so we can form our group. They took another quick round around, their cloaks and robes flapping in the wind. Professor Safer went up to each of them and gave them hacky sacks. Naruto held the sack and passed it to Victor, who it to Milos. Hey, I'll throw it as hard as I can and we'll see who can catch it first, okay? Milos took aim on his broom and threw with all his might. The sack actually flew a good distance away. Naruto and Victor made a mad dash after it. They were toe and toe, or broom and broom, but Naruto looked to be closer, and he catches it. Nice catch, you'd make a decent seeker, Victor said, catching the ball from Naruto, who passed it. The class passed by a lot faster than the other classes except for maybe Dark Arts class, but it was close. It must have been because they were playing the entire class time. No homework, obviously. Remember though, Quidditch tryouts start in 2 weeks. We need 1 chaser, 1 keeper and 2 beaters for the Ignatus team. That was fun, Naruto exclaimed. Victor and Milos agreed. Professor is usually like that. Not too strict but not too much of a pushover, even though his appearance says otherwise. Hey, what time is it? Naruto asked. Milos pulled out his watch. It's only 3:30 p.m. Curfew isn't till 8 o'clock, so what should we do? They all stood in thinking poses. Naruto snapped his fingers. How about we explore the school and the grounds? Sounds like something the Marauders would do. That sounds interestingly fun. Let's go. 999 duovigintillion 999 unvigintillion 999 vigintillion 999 novemdecillion 999 octodecillion 999 septendecillion 999 sextecillion 999 quindecillion 999 quatuordecillion 999 tridecillion 999 duodecillion 999 undecillion 999 decillion 999 nonillion 999 octillion 999 septillion 999 sextillion 999 quintillion 999 quadrillion 999 trillion 999 billion 999 million 999,999. I never knew there were so many hidden doors, corridors, and passageways in the school. Milos said, walking into the common room, falling onto the couch. Naruto sat in the single armchair and propped himself onto his elbows. I just wonder how they made all of it when the school was constructed. Aha! We should make a map for our use in the future generation. And we can look around the school every other day after classes and put it on the map. Yeah, let's start tomorrow. What should it be called? Milos questioned. About the forbidden map. I know it's lame. Sure, let's get started. Naruto said, running to get a quill and parchment and started scribbling things down. They stayed like that until 11 o'clock and they went to bed for tomorrow's lessons. In dark arts class they continued the Patronus charm, Naruto and Victor being the only two getting anything out of their wands. And all classes remained the same. Before they knew it, they were roaming the school grounds again, trying to find any hidden passageways. They walked back to their common room to work on the map in the corner, and they finally made the big breakthrough after 4 hours. So there's a hidden passageway there. Yep, and this statue leads to it was to another statue outside the Quidditch pitch. You sure this map will be usable? Victor asked, looking at the complete map. Positive. Milos and Naruto said, giving him 2 thumbs up. Weasley twin alert. This'll be similar to the Marauders map, because what kind of sneaking around-ish adventure is complete without a map like this? That if they are caught and a teacher takes the map. Naruto took out his wand. Easy. We enchant it to be viewable and unviewable only when the correct words and wand movements are used. Victor looked exasperated. Do you know a spell to do that? Of course no. We can use this book I bought when I was looking for my school books. Milos pulled out a book entitled Magical Mayhem for Mischief Makers. Perfect. Naruto grabbed the book and flipped through. Aha! He exclaimed. Naruto took his wand and tapped the paper. I solemnly swear that I am up to no good. The map stayed the same. All three stared at it. Was that the right thing to say? Yeah, that was what you have to say to make it appear. Let's try making it disappear. Naruto tapped it again and said, mischief managed. The map went blank. Wow, awesome, cool, all three high-fived each other. It works. Naruto yawned. We should probably go to bed, it's 12 o'clock right now. We'll try to make 2 more copies another day. Naruto grabbed the map and the three walked up to their dorms, and Naruto made sure to place the map safely in his trunk. Good night, nighty-night. They all lied in their bed and were soon succumbed by sleep. 99 septillion 999 sextillion 999 quintillion 999 quadrillion 999 trillion 999 billion 999 million 999,999. 9 quatuordecillion 999 tridecillion 999 duodecillion 999 undecillion 999 decillion 999 nonillion 999 octillion 999 septillion 999 sextillion 999 quintillion 999 quadrillion 999 trillion 999 billion 999 million 999,999. Today was the day when the Quidditch tryouts were to take place. Naruto was nervously pacing back and forth in the common room, Milos pacing with him. Victor had walked into the common room and watched the two of them pacing. That are you two, the W is not heard or pronounced, doing. Were pacing. Naruto and Milos collided with each other. Naruto rubbed his forehead. Today is when the Quidditch tryouts are taking place. Okay. But why are you pacing though? Naruto and Milos looked at each other, then back at Victor, and they both said, "We're nervous." Victor grabbed them both by the arm and pulled them up and pushed them toward the exit. "Just go for it, okay?" Naruto skidded to a stop. "Yeah, you're right. Milos and I should go for it. Let's go." Naruto and Milos took a step out of the room before stepping back in. "We are in pajamas, and we need to get our brooms." Naruto and Milos raced upstairs and changed into their uniform. Naruto changed into his white button-down shirt, red vest, striped tie and his black trousers, while Milos wore his white shirt with his red cardigan. "Victor, can I borrow your Nimbus 2000? "Nah," Ruto asked, walking down the stairs, being careful not to fall. "Sure, oh, on second thought, you can borrow my Nimbus 2001 for good luck." "Thanks," Naruto said, scratching his cheek and running up to grab the broomstick. Naruto and Milos ran out of their common room and thanked Victor for the support, and he said to them that he would be watching the tryouts because he was on the team. Naruto and Milos ran as fast as they could down to the Great Hall, but Milos had ended up bumping into and knocking a student over. "Oh, I'm so sorry about that." Milos quickly apologized and helped the student pick up his books. The guy was muttering something that wasn't completely audible. It sounded like, "Must hurry, plant, pure, school." He didn't bother to say anything to them and rushed down the corridor. Milos looked in that direction for a moment, trying to remember something. He turned back to Naruto and said, "Hey, I remember. He's a 5th year in the Avalon house. Really smart fella he is. Shoot, we better hurry up and eat. Tryouts are in half an hour." They pushed the massive doors open and sat at their respective table and began scarfing down their food as fast as possible. They bolted out of their seats so fast many students craned their neck just to see what the racket was. They grabbed their brooms and made a dash for the entrance. The pitch was empty when they first arrived, so, using their time wisely, they took off and flew around the pitch and landed back down, seeing the Ignatus team approaching. Looky here, guys, looks like we have new recruits," the tall, brown-haired 6th year said. He walked closer to them until he was a feet apart from them. "What positions you tryin' out for?" "Chaser," Naruto said first. "Beater," Milos said second. "Wonderful. I'm the Ignatus captain, Daniel Flitch. Now, let's see what you got. Blondie, you're up first. I'm going to ask you a few questions before we start the physical tryouts." "Alright, name?" he asked. "Naruto Uzumaki. Age? Turning 15 in October." Naruto said, seeing Daniel scribbling things down. He looked up and threw the clipboard and pen aside. "Well, now the boring part is done. We only have to do that because we have to. Let's hit the air. Up you go, Uzumaki. I'll be telling my other chaser to throw the quaffle at ya, and Ya'll be throwing them into those 3 hoops in the quickest time, alright? 'Kay, up ya go." Naruto flew up into the air and waited for the other chaser to throw the large red ball that had large indentations in it. Daniel clicked the timer, starting Naruto's time. Naruto flew on the Nimbus 2001 to the hoops and threw it into the highest one in the middle and flew around back, catching it. He flew around and threw it into the second tallest, did the same and finally threw it through the smallest one and catching it and flying back to the ground. Daniel clicked the timer, stopping it. He took a look at it and said, "Not bad, Uzumaki, you can go now. The results will be posted in 2 hours on the bulletin in our common room. Polyakov, you're next." Naruto took the broom and gave it to Victor, who was sitting on the ground with the rest of the team. "I'll see you and Milos later. I gotta go to the library to find a book that'll help me with my essay. See ya." The library was nearly empty as usual, seeing as who would want to waste time in the library on the weekend besides people like him who forgot about his homework. He ran around the library trying to find a book about spells and proper uses of them, but he instead saw the 5th year Milos had run into sitting in a far corner reading 2 huge books, and a smaller book lay on the floor. Kaiser was also sitting in the other corner with piles on piles of books stacked all around him. Naruto silently walked up to the 5th year. "What are you doing?" The 5th year jumped a tiny bit, adjusted his glasses. "That's none of your business, you get." He spat, stuffing the 2 books into his bag and walking out of the library. He left behind his small book. Naruto grabbed it and tried to yell for him. "Hey! Wait, you forgot your book." "Shish," the librarian scolded from her desk. "Sorry," Naruto quietly said. He looked at the book in his hands and looked at the inside cover, property of Raider Halvard. He flipped through it some more and it said, Roll Book, on the inside in gold. This roll book belongs to Raider, so why does that guy have it? Naruto turned to walk to where Kaiser was and asked, Hey Kaiser, do you know who the guy that was sitting over there was? Kaiser stayed still but answered, that was Jeremy Jetto. Thanks. Naruto said, leaving Kaiser to his studying or reading. He looked back at the roll book. What could Jeremy have found use for Raider's roll book? Naruto thought to himself, flipping through the book again. This time a piece of parchment fell out. Naruto picked the parchment up. A Perio's statua. Naruto said, looking at the paper, unknown to him the book in his hand glowed white for a second before disappearing. Is that a spell? Maybe there is something that's supposed to be between the lines. Naruto said to himself and re-looked at the book. Nothing but names of all the students in Hiruf. Naruto landed on the ground painfully and the book fell from his hands. He felt a pair of hands pulling him up by his vest. Are you alright? Said a slightly tense and gruff voice. Fine. Naruto muttered, just slightly bruised. Sorry about that. I'm in a hurry and I lost a book that I need. The voice said as he cleaned the dirt off his robes. Raider. Wait, you said you lost a book, right? Was it your roll book? Asked Naruto, who picked up the book off the ground. Darn, I stepped on it. He muttered. What was that? Raider asked, looking over his shoulder. Nothing. Is this your book? Raider grabbed it, wide-eyed. Oh, thank heavens. I thought I wasn't going to be finding it anytime soon. Thanks, Naruto. As reward for helping me out. Could you swing by my office later at say, 7:30 tonight? Jiminy crickets. I'm late. See ya then. Raider said, cheekily, running down the corridor and disappearing around the corner. Naruto looked back at the parchment. I'll just hang onto this for now. He slipped the paper into his pocket. Hey, Naruto. Hey, Naruto. A voice echoed down the corridor and footsteps rushed toward where he was standing. Naruto felt two pairs of arms grabbing him from the sides and lifting him and carrying him toward the West Tower. Naruto looked side to side, seeing Milos and Victor and a few other Ignatius students following closely. The results from the tryouts are being posted right now. Move it, people, future Quidditch stars coming through. Immortals Sumus. The Phoenix's wings opened, revealing the STAIRS in which they all trampled on as fast as they could. A sixth year sitting in the common room looked up at them. Hey guys, the Quidditch results were posted, so if you wanted to arg. The sixth AR was trampled and sucked into the group, trying to get a glimpse of the board. The three were waiting patiently, well in Milos' case he was stomping his feet like he had a twitch, waiting for the others to finish. Most of them left with their heads hanging low. A fifth and sixth year high-fived each other, screaming, yeah. Naruto and Milos glanced nervously at each other. The moment of truth, Alright. They grabbed each other's shoulder and walked up to the bulletin. Ignatius Quidditch tryout results. Keeper, Andros Yech. Beater, Joshua Kifa. Naruto and Milos glanced nervously down. Beater, Milos Polyakov. Chaser, Naruto Uzumaki. Choices are final. Meetings start in 2 weeks. Signed, Ignatius Captain Daniel Flitch. Naruto and Milos gave a loud, hell yeah. Victor clapped the two on the shoulder. Congrats. Let's go celebrate at dinner, come on. They took their time to get down to the Great Hall, singing random jolly tunes. They practically skipped into the hall and were about to take a seat when they heard, hey. Naruto, Milos, why don't you and Victor sit with the Quidditch team? Daniel's voice echoed through the hall. They walked to where the team was, which was near to where the staff table was and furthest from the door. Here, you two take honorary seats. Grinning, Daniel patted the place next to where he was sitting. They took a seat and began munching on the food. Neil lifted his goblet and took his spoon and proceeded to clang the two together. The hall hushed and many were seeing who had caused this silence to break over. Ignatius table, can you hear me? All the other houses. This has nothing to do with you, so go back to your dinner. Daniel said, though the whole hall including the teachers could hear him. Daniel stood up and walked to the edge at the top of the table. I, Daniel Flitch, Ignatius Quidditch captain, would like to propose a toast to our 4 new members on the team. Our keeper, Andros Yech, our beater, Joshua Kifa, and our new beater and chaser. Our new chaser is Milos Polyakov and our new chaser is our new student in 5th year also, Naruto Uzumaki. Let's give them a toast. Daniel raised his goblet and others followed, he then tipped the goblet onto his mouth and greedily drank all of its contents. Some sitting at other houses joined in the toast and others just laughed at their antics. They all ate until they could no longer and it was 7:15. Come on, I still have to do my report for tomorrow. Milos hastened trying to get them to go up with him to help him. They almost reached the door when a smug voice halted them. I'm surprised you managed to get on the Quidditch team, Polyakov. Let me guess, they let you in as a towel boy but they felt sorry so they let you take the beater post until they find a better one. Which shouldn't be hard at all. The lengthy brown-haired, sharp-faced boy said howling with laughter and so did the group following him. Milos grew red with anger. What did you say to me, Scorpius? It took a handful of students to hold Milos back and preventing him from punching the jerk. The boy stood there smirking. I highly doubt a wuss like you could even lay a hand on me. He said in an I am so better than you voice. Just because a git like you is rich doesn't mean you're better than me. Milos howled, his face flushed completely red. But you're wrong, it does, piggy. The boy, whose name was Rex Scorpius, said smugly. Well, at least I don't have to buy my friends and run away at any sign of danger, coward. Milos said angrily at Rex. Rex stopped laughing, you son of a b. Milos had freed himself from the others and cocked his right arm back and punched Rex square in the face. Rex landed on the ground with a thud. He slowly got up to show that his nose was bleeding and that he had a black eye. Don't you dare try to insult my mother. Milos screamed, enraged. He was punched in the face too by Rex who had run up to Milos. They were about to start brawling, but Naruto and Victor stopped them. Milos looked at his friends and back to Scorpius and finally at the ground. Milos made to walk away, but he heard other students gasping around him. By the time he too he saw Scorpius pulling out his wand and saying, Stupefy. A red beam emanated out of his wand and come hurling toward Milos. Milos tried to pull out his wand, but Naruto was faster, Protega. A small shield materialized in front of Milos, the spell rebounded of the shield and headed back around to Rex. He managed to hit the floor in time to avoid the spell. He shifted his wand at Milos again. Victor pulled out his wand this time and whispers, Levicorpus. A flash of light appeared and Rex was levitated up in the air by his ankles, his wand forgotten on the floor. Stop. Headmaster Karkaroff's voice rang high in the air. All occupants in the hall were silent, watching the scene unfold. Attacking another student is strictly forbidden. I hope you two are prepared to face your punishments. Karkaroff stared down at them coldly and furiously. Rex, who was being supported by another student and after telling them to stop touching him, tried to defend himself. But Headmaster Polyakov had punched me. Gesturing to his black eye, cut lip, and bloody nose, he attacked me first, so I had to defend myself. Enough. You both will have 50 points deducted from your houses and you will be serving detention tomorrow night. You, Scorpius, will be serving detention under Professor Zelenka and you, Headmaster Karkaroff started, turning to Polyakov who looked up, his face bloody. From the bloody nose and his lips swollen, will be with Professor Halvard. He made a 360 and faced Naruto and Victor. And you too. He stood looking at them ignoring Milos, pleased that they were only trying to break up the fight. You two have earned 5 points each for trying to break up a fight. Good job, A.N. Favoritism much. He said and with a swish of his cloak he walked back up to the staff table. They helped Milos out of the great hall and to the nurse. Well, at least you guys didn't get in trouble. Milos joked trying to smile with his swollen lips. Naruto who was supporting Milos from the right asked. Who was that jerk anyway? Milos slowed down a bit. That prat. His name is Rex Scorpius, the worst git there is, shame he decided to go to this school. The first time he saw me, he instantly made me his target because of my messy eating habits and so on. They arrived at the hospital wing and sat Milos down at the table. The nurse had used a spell to stop his nose form continuing to bleed and his lip had been swollen. He looked at the clock, it was 7:02. Gee whiz. He was late. Naruto got up hastily and turned to Victor and Milos. Sorry guys. I gotta go meet with Professor Halvard. He rushed out and they heard a loud thud a second later and an, I'm okay. And his footsteps faded. Naruto quickly sewed his way through students returning to their dorms and arrived heaving and out of breath in Professor Halvard's classroom. He calmly looked up, sipping his pumpkin juice. "Ah, there you are, Naruto. Sit, go on," Raider said, gesturing to one of the empty desk's tables. He set a cup of pumpkin juice on the table and moved it closer to Naruto. "So, I heard you made it into the Quidditch team from the commotion coming from your captain and a chaser at that." He went to his broomstick case and reached inside and grabbed out an older yet still new-looking broom and held it tenderly in his hands. "I remember when I attended Durmstrang, was sorted into Ignatus, and was chosen to be the chaser. Good memories that have long passed. Headmaster Karkaroff was actually my headmaster too, as a matter of fact," he said, putting the broom back. Naruto had finished his juice by the time Raider finished his quick rant. So why am I here, Professor? Call me Raider, please." "Oh, that's right. I wanted to give you something," he said, snapping his fingers together. He walked behind his desk into the closet and pulled out a huge book titled, The Big Book of Spells. "Here you go." He dropped the book onto the table. "You did marvelously on my lessons and I don't think you know too many spells. So this is the latest book that has every spell and casting directions and dark magic theories. It's almost curfew time. Run along, shoo, shoo." Raider's sigh, deep, pushing Naruto out of his classroom and shoved the book into his hands. "See you," Naruto murmured as Raider slammed the door shut. He walked slowly back to Ignatus Tower, being careful to avoid any prefects. Victor was plopped on the armchair silently reading a book, the others around him chatting happily away. "Hey, Victor, where's Milos?" Naruto said, falling to the ground and sitting cross-legged on the floor and laying his book aside. Victor closed his book, threw it to the table. "He's still down at the nurse's." "That's that." Victor pointed at the book. "Oh, this?" Naruto asked, gesturing to the book. "Raider gave it to me. It has all these spells and dark magic theory or something like that." Let's see what's inside it then." They opened the book and began to read aloud. The weeks had gone by faster than he expected, and today was Saturday and October 10th, his birthday. Naruto tried to sleep again, seeing that it was a Saturday, but, "Naruto, get down here. Hurry up." Groaning, he threw his blanket off and walked down the stairs. What is it?" Naruto walked and tripped down the stairs as he was rubbing his eyes, resulting in him falling flat on the ground. He got up slowly, looking at them groggily. "What?" Victor and Milos were standing side by side, looking like they were trying to block something from view. "We called you down here to tell you." Milos started and the both said at the same time, "Happy birthday." They moved aside, showing Naruto a massive pile of presents sitting next to the fireplace. What is all that?" Naruto asked stupidly. "Your presents, silly," Milos said. "But why are there so many?" "Well, Headmaster Karkaroff had told everyone while you were doing an errand for him, and it was on the main bulletin near the Great Hall, so everyone, mostly, decided to welcome the new 5th year with presents." Naruto now understood, and he made sure to read bulletin notices from now on. "Come on, open your presents. Mine first," Victor said, giving him a long box that was a bit longer than him. He ripped open the wrapping paper and slowly opened the box. "Wow," Naruto said, looking at the contents in the box. Inside was a brand new and polished Nimbus 2001. The sleek handle was smooth under his hands and the bristles trimmed to perfection. "This must have cost you a fortune." Victor lifted his hand to stop him. "Don't mention it." "Ooh, mine next. Mine next," Milos said, grabbing his present from the pile. "Here." He thrust the present into Naruto's hands. It was a very strangely wrapped gift that was soft and lumpy. He unwrapped it and pulled out a cloak and an assortment of sweets. Thanks for the candy and cloak," Naruto said, looking at it. "Try it on." Milos gestured to him. He placed it over his shoulders and looked at the mirror. The parts that the cloak covered had disappeared and he was now a floating head. "What the?" Naruto spluttered. He covered his head and looked at the mirror. He was completely invisible. "It's an invisibility cloak. My father knows a guy who makes them, so, yeah," Milos said, trying to grope around for Naruto and the cloak. He pulled the cloak off. "Thanks. Let's go down to eat. I'm starving. The other presents can wait. Then we can go and see if we can go outside to practice our spells." Naruto said, running up and putting his presents away and grabbing his spell book. Naruto had walked in and the first thing he heard was screams kinda like these. Uzumaki, happy birthday. Hey, new kid, happy B-day. Another year older. Why doesn't anyone do this for me? Naruto walked to his table and began to eat breakfast and getting many more birthday wishes from his classmates. Hey, thanks. Naruto scratched the back of his head. The next thing he knew, Victor had placed a cake in front of him. In the corner of his eyes he saw Raider winking at him. Make a wish, Victor said, lighting the candles with a small incendio. Naruto closed his eyes and thought, I wish for a fun year and to make more friends. He blew the candles out and cut himself a slice of cake. He saw a glimpse of Kaiser watching from the other end of the table. Naruto got up, carrying a slice of cake with him, over to Kaiser. Here you go, Kaiser. I hope you wish me a nice birthday. Naruto grinned, sliding the cake in front of Kaiser. Kaiser looked down at the cake. Thank you, he whispered, taking a small bite of the cake. Naruto finished his cake and he, along with Victor and Kaiser, had gone outside into the courtyard. The first spell is called Accio. It is primarily used to summon objects at the caster's bidding. Naruto said, reading word for word from the book. Oh, yeah, they learned that in charms. Damn, spell almost killed me. Professor Blaine had a pocket knife in the classroom and someone used the spell and it flew at me. Victor grimaced at the memory. Milos scratched his head. My bad, Victor, I was aiming for the apple she had. I was hungry. Okay, Naruto. How about you try to summon that rock over there? Milos said, pointing to an isolated rock at the end of the yard. Hold on 1 second, Victor said, and pulled a helmet out of nowhere and placed it on his head. Alright, I'm ready. Accio. Naruto cast the spell and it did start coming over to Naruto, at 70 miles an hour. Milos and Naruto ducked and the rock hit Victor's helmet. Victor stood there unfazed. He put his thumbs up. I'm okay. I knew this would come in handy. He knocked the top of his helmet. Alrighty. Let's try again, and this time, but this time not too fast and not too slow. 15 minutes later, Naruto had finally got the hand of it and he was able to summon things without hitting Victor in the head. Awesome, now let's see what other spells we can do. Aha. How about the Evert Statum spell? It hurls the caster's desired object forward. Milos said, pointing to the spell for Naruto and Victor to see. What should we use? Naruto asked, looking at the spell. Milos grinned. I have an idea. His eyes moved to Victor, who caught the look, said, no. Come on. Milos whined, you have a helmet. No, that doesn't mean I won't be harmed bodily. Victor said, shaking his head and crossing his arms. What are we going to use then? I have a proposal, Victor said, his eyes twinkling. They ended up putting Quidditch gear on Milos and Victor's helmet safely on his head. Okay, so Naruto, if you will, cast the spell. Victor said. Evert Statum, Naruto said, an invisible force expelling from his wand. Milos clamped his eyes shut, awaiting for the spell to hit. He was hurled 100 feet back and landed against a tree. He got up. Hey. That didn't hurt at all. Ah. Milos was soon attacked by the tree's angry squirrel inhabitants. Seems that went well, on your part. Let's try the ah. A scream echoed in the sky. A flock of birds flying out from the trees, obviously disturbed by the scream. What was that? Milos asked shakily. Naruto pointed to the lake hidden behind trees beyond the gate. It sounded like it came from over there. They ran to the clearing to see a fourth-year girl writhing on the ground in pain. She convulsed before passing out on the ground. What was that? Naruto asked, examining the girl. Victor's eyes narrowed. It looks like the Cruciatus spell. It causes extreme pain to the target. The spell wore off, which means the caster is probably gone by now. Well, come on guys, help me get her to the castle, Naruto said, heaving the girl onto his back. Naruto sprinted into the trees. Milos and Victor ran after him. They ran into the main entrance. I'll bring her down to the hospital wing. You two tell Headmaster Karkaroff. Naruto said, running down the corridor. He arrived at the hospital and placed her onto an unoccupied bed. Nurse examined her and said she was stable and to just let her rest. Headmaster Karkaroff, and the other teachers with Milos and Victor followed close behind, burst into the room. What happened? Karkaroff said, looking at the girl. Naruto got up. Well, Victor, Milos and I heard a scream coming from near the lake. So we checked it out and we found her on the ground in pain. Victor said it might have been the Cruciatus spell. Naruto said in one breath. Karkaroff slammed his hands on the side table. Unbelievable. How dare anyone use of the unforgivable curses on a student? Outrageous. Teach. We are to have an emergency meeting up in my office now. Madam Zesno, please look after the girl. Karkaroff said, leaving the wing, the other teachers following. I wonder who could have done something like this. Milos asked, looking slowly at the girl. Naruto shrugged. I don't know, but whoever did this must have been a dark wizard. Maybe we'll be able to ask when she wakes up tomorrow or something. Victor stood looking at the girl with a steely gaze. I'm going to the library. Don't wait up, Victor said, exiting the wing. I guess we should go. Want to continue practicing outside? Milos asked, holding Naruto's book up. Yeah, let's go. They walked out of the hospital wing and back out to the courtyard. Naruto decided to ask a burning question he had wanted to when Victor left. Why did Victor look so pissed off when he went to the library? Milos bit his lip. Well, it must be because something like this had happened in the past. A boy named Gellert Grindelwald who attended Durmstrang had stubbornly pursued experiments in the dark arts and was expelled. Some of his experiments were that he had used the unforgivable curses on fellow students and things so unimaginable that the victim could not even repeat. Years later, when Victor and I were in our 4th year, a bunch of idiots copied Grindelwald's symbol and waved it around proudly. Victor had lost his grandfather to Grindelwald and I lost my cousin. So we decided to teach the morons a painful lesson. But history is repeating itself and it looks like someone else is following in Grindelwald's footsteps. Naruto simply blinked. So, this happened before? He asked silently. Milos nodded. Yes. Naruto's fist was shaking and so was his body. That's terrible. Why would anyone do that? Naruto screamed. His eyes widened and he slowly looked at the ground. Ninjas were exactly like that. Hurting one another without any remorse. In the back of his mind he knew that wizards like that were not so far off from ninjas. They were almost similar really, destroying anything to get what they wanted. I don't know. I guess it's just in their nature. Milos said sadly. I think we should get back to the book. How about we try the disarming spell? He showed Naruto the spell. He nodded. Milos walked to the other end of the yard and took out his wand. Naruto held his wand in both hands and exclaimed, Expelliarmus. A stream of red expelled from his wand and connected with Milos, resulting in his wand being thrown to the side and him flying backwards. Oh crap, Naruto said, watching Milos get up. He wobbled to Naruto and grabbed onto him for support. I don't think we need to practice that. I think we should go back into Ignatus Tower. Naruto said and lifted Milos up and put his arms around his shoulder for support. When they had gotten back to the tower, Victor was nowhere to be found. Milos and Naruto had decided to go up to their room and opened up a few more presents and went to bed. The incident with the girl making them lose their appetite. Naruto hit his bed with a soft thud and slowly closed his eyes, one last thought lingering in his mind: things just got a lot more complicated this year. Kyuubi opened his eyes. You have no idea, Kit. Kyuubi said before he too closed his eyes in exhaustion. Finished. Naruto happily exclaimed and slammed his book shut. He held up his 3-feet-long parchment and looked at it lovingly. Milos pouted, watching Naruto kiss his essay enviously. How is it that you, who complained the most about the homework, managed to finish it before us? Naruto wagged his finger back and forth and grinned. If you ever learn ninja arts then you'd be able to perform the Kage Bunshin as I did. Naruto high-fived his clone, which dispersed soon after. Victor sighed and closed his textbook. He looked over his essay. Who knew that writing a 3-feet essay on the unforgivable curses would take an hour to finish? I did. Now would someone help me with mine? Milos screamed, viciously scribbling on his parchment. They both shook their head. Milos started to cry anime-ishly. Well, I have something to cheer up by. Winter break is next week. 2.5 weeks without getting homework. Where are you guys going? Milos asked, closing his book, obviously not finishing his essay. I will be visiting my parents back at home. Victor said, munching on a chocolate frog. Naruto took an offered frog from Victor. I'm going to go visit Hogwarts and Bobatons, I think. Milos stared slack-jawed at him. Lucky. The girls who attend Bobatons are gorgeous. The girls here don't compare to them. Ow. Milos spluttered before getting hit with a mug that was thrown by a girl who was sitting near them. She huffed and stormed away. What did I say? Well anyway. I think Hogwarts is in a very sticky situation right now. A friend of mine goes there and he said he and almost everyone else will be leaving Hogwarts for the break. Milos said. Why? Naruto asked curiously. His other half of chocolate long forgotten beside him. From what he told me, what are you lot staring at? Milos yelled at a group of second-year girls who were nearby. Milos leaned closer to them and said in a hushed voice, the Chamber of Secrets has been opened and the heir of Slytherin is now residing somewhere in the school. The Chamber of Secrets. Did he tell you what's in there? Naruto asked, whispering. Milos shook his head. But he did tell me that a Muggle-born had died the last time it opened 50 years ago. Whatever lies in it attacks the enemy of the heir. Milos said seriously, his eyes darting back and forth for any signs of eavesdroppers. Enemy of the heir, do you mean Muggle-borns? Victor asked this time. Milos nodded gravely. They sat there in a pregnant silence. Well, that was interesting. Where did you say you were going to go, Milos? Naruto asked, his mind still lingering on the chamber. I'm going to be going to Hogsmeade with my uncle to see the Shrieking Shack and my dad will be picking me up. Milos said, drooling over the thought of a bunch of food waiting for him at home and the piles of presents he'll be getting. So, Naruto, Milos started scooting closer to Naruto, when you go to Bobatons could you, I don't know, take a few pictures of the school, girls, classes, girls. Mostly the girls. Milos started to nudge Naruto in the chest. Okay. Milos, this Chamber of Secrets, who created it? And, is there one at this school? I mean, Victor told me about how only half-bloods and pure blood are permitted and Muggle-born are exempt. Naruto said looking intently between Victor and Milos. Well, it was in Hogwarts, a history which my mum made me read. It said that it was supposedly created by Salazar Slytherin nearly 1,000 years ago because of his disagreement in who were allowed to attend Hogwarts. And your second question, no, there have not been any reports of such a thing and when the school was built. The founders had already established an exclusive no Muggle-born policy for pure wizards, safety, if anything was wrong with them, but in my opinion. Milos leaned alarmingly closer. They were all just purist bastards who knew Muggle-borns could best them at almost anything. Naruto nodded. Did your friend say who he thought might have been the heir of Slytherin? He actually said almost everyone suspects that it's Harry Potter. Harry Potter. But isn't he the Vone that vanquished Voldemort and everything? Wie Vold they suspect the Vone who had opened the chamber when he killed Voldemort who was Slytherin's descendant. Victor asked, obviously confused. Milos winced at the mention of Voldemort's name but continued, he only told me that at one of the IR classes a student made a snake appear and Harry started to talk to it, and from what my friend said, the snake tried to attack one of his classmates. Talking to snakes? You mean he's a Parseltongue? Victor asked. Naruto looked confused. Parseltongue. Does that mean the ability to talk to snakes? Is that uncommon? Yes, and it is a very uncommon and unlikable gift considering he who must not be named is a Parseltongue too. Milos answered, shuddering at the idea of talking to snakes and you know who. So, Milos started, did any of you finish the essay for Transfiguration? Naruto and Victor nodded. Can I copy it? Milos asked hopefully. Naruto and Victor looked at each other before facing Milos and saying simultaneously, no. Why me? Milos exclaimed, crying manly tears as he wrote the massive essay. Naruto and Victor only watched in amusement as he did so. Clothes. Check. Wand. Check. Luggage. Check. Naruto stood at the train station making sure nothing was forgotten from the train ride. Victor had already been picked up by his dad when they arrived at the first stop yesterday, and Milos was going to buy a snack or something food related as his breakfast. Milos came by, CK holding a bag full magical and non-magical candies and treats. Hey, Naruto, I was able to go through the barrier and buy some candy from a Muggle vendor. Can you tell me what Pop Rocks are? Milos asked, holding up a small pack with the words, Pop Rocks, cracking candy with a kick. Oh, I had these before. They're just candy that starts to crackle and pop in your mouth. Naruto explained, taking a handful and stuffing it into his mouth. He stuck out his tongue to show the crackling effect. Milos looked with a scrutinizing expression at the popping candy. Does that hurt? Whatever. Can you also tell me what cotton candy is? He asked, holding up a stick with fluffy and sticky blue fluff. After half an hour of explaining to Milos the variety of Muggle treats that he had bought, Milos had ended up giving most to Naruto, seeing as how these were his favorites that he would buy in a store in Suna. I don't know how Muggles eat these things. Milos started shoving a whole cauldron cake into his mouth, though I have to admit, these pop rocks are awesome. They're like mini edible fireworks. Looks like it's time to board the train again. Next stop, Scotland. Naruto said, grabbing the railing. Yeah, you'll be going to Hogwarts from Hogsmeade and my uncle will meet me there. The train ride to Scotland was once again long and dull. They were slowly pulling up near Hogsmeade. Wow, it feels a lot warmer here than in Bulgaria, Naruto said, stepping off the train. It should. Bulgaria has much lower climate and temperature than Scotland, Milos stated, jumping off with his things in hand. Well, I better go meet up with my uncle, have fun at Hogwarts and Beauxbatons. And don't forget the photos. Milos grinned as he ran off. Naruto shook his head. I guess I should start my way to Hogwarts. He sighed and started his trek. Hogwarts castle was much larger than Durmstrang, but Durmstrang had more land that stretched even further. Naruto had to agree that he enjoyed the warmer weather though. They have a clock tower. Naruto was standing at the entrance of Hogwarts and the school seemed kind of empty, like no one was there at all. Hello there, mate, said two identical voices. Naruto whirled around to see identical red-headed twins looking at him curiously. Hi, Naruto said, looking at them. How? The left one started. Do you do? The right one ended. The LF twin rested his elbow on Naruto's shoulder and said, I'm Fred Weasley. The other did the same, and I'm George Weasley. And might we ask, who are you? I'm Naruto Uzumaki, Naruto said in amusement and somewhat perturbed. Fred started as the twins circled around Naruto, eyeing him up and down. Judging from your uniform, you're from Durmstrang. They finished together. Naruto nodded. Yeah, I'm visiting at Hogwarts. Can any one of you tell me where Dumbledore is? They looked at each other and each grabbed him from under the arms. Don't worry mate, we'll show you to where Dumbledore and the rest are. He was dragged into the main entrance and through the double doors of the Great Hall. Harry was sitting with Hermione and Ron at the Gryffindor table. The only Gryffindors left in the castle were him, Hermione and the Weasleys. Malfoy and his goons were the only Slytherins, including the prefect that didn't leave the castle too. With all the commotion about the sham of secrets and he being the heir of Slytherin, he didn't really want to spend Christmas having to frustratingly tell everyone that he didn't open the chamber. He could enjoy Christmas with his fellow Gryffindors playing Exploding Snap and dueling all they wanted. Speaking of fellow Gryffindors, where were Fred and George? The other Weasleys were in the Great Hall having lunch, while Percy was scribbling ferociously on parchment, his nose touching the paper. Speak of the devils. Harry saw Fred and George dragging an older boy, who had brilliantly blonde hair and a foreign red uniform, down East center aisle of the hall toward the staff table. The boy was struggling in their grasps, telling them, stop it. Put me down. Can you hear me at all? He looked at Hermione and Ron and saw them staring too. Then again everyone in the Great Hall was staring. Harry saw Dumbledore's look of bemusement behind his half-moon spectacles. Hey there, headmaster, Fred said cheekily, still holding Naruto. George followed suit and said, we have someone who said he wanted to see you, headmaster. They dropped him onto his feet and brushed off specks of dirt and snow as though they were trying to make him presentable. Would you stop? Naruto snapped as he pushed their hands away. See ya, mate, George said, saluting him. Hope to see you again in next time. Fred said, we can have some real fun. George finished. Fred came up to Naruto and dug something out of his pockets. He pulled out what seemed to be a business card and handed it to Naruto. Here's our card. If you ever want to find us for pranks, services and such. Fred whispered and winked as he and his twin moved to the Gryffindor table. Pranks, Naruto thought, now I'm starting to like this school. He hurriedly put away the card and looked up at the staff of the school. They were looking at him with mixtures of amusement and somewhat disdain. Naruto started, good afternoon, Professor Dumbledore and staff. He unconsciously scratched the back of his head sheepishly. It seems you've made some new friends and quite an amusing entrance. Dumbledore stated, looking at Naruto kindly. Naruto flushed in embarrassment. Hehehe. Either way, you were able to make your way to Hogwarts. Breakfast has begun and I am sure you are rather hungry from the trip, are you not? Dumbledore gestured to him. As if on cue, Naruto's stomach growled immensely loud for all to hear. It seems my assumptions are correct. Why don't you make yourself at home and have some supper, and I've heard that the Christmas pudding and treacle tarts are especially good. Dumbledore winked and continued, and I will have someone show you to your sleeping quarters and around the school for a tour. Naruto sat at the red and old table where the remaining Gryffindors were sitting, ignorant to the jeers and scowl that a boy named Draco Malfoy was throwing his way. He had eaten his fill when one of the twins, Fred, or was it George, offered him a custard tart. Custard tart, mate? Fred asked, handing an ordinary tart to Naruto. Naruto shrugged and took a large bite out of it, savoring its taste. He accidentally dropped it when he felt a strange sensation build up in him. He saw Fred and George snickering and high-fiving each other. Naruto looked at his plate, which was clean enough to act as a mirror. He was turned into a huge orange bird. A canary, he thought. He remained that way until he started to cough out feathers and the feathers virtually disappeared. Many besides the twins were giggling at his moments as a huge bird, but gradually stopped from his glare. He glared especially hard at the twins, who exclaimed, "Canary creams, a success." Sorry there, mate. We had to see if they actually worked on off. Our people and everyone else already knew about it except you, George said through a laughing fit. Naruto looked at him bitterly before lightening up. Hey, you guys said you pulled pranks, right? They nodded. I was a prankster too. So, why don't we meet up sometime to create some grand pranks? Naruto suggested as he got a thoughtful look from Fred and George. Alright, consider you have our support. We'll think of meeting up sometime later, George said. Naruto asked the twins all sorts of questions, in which they answered and asked him about Durmstrang. Though Naruto was now sitting in sta ring intently at Harry, who was failing to hide behind his treacle tart from the heated glare. Can I help you? Harry asked from behind his plate. Naruto shook his head. Sorry, I didn't realize I was staring at you like that. I just feel like I should know you, but I'm not sure how. Harry sank even further into his seat and patted his hair down to hide his scar. Fred slung his hand onto Naruto's shoulder. Well, of course you wouldn't recognize him. His lightning bolt scars hidden behind his hair. Lightning bolt scar, Naruto said slowly, trying to figure out why that rings a bell. It all icked together when he thought of his talk with Milos and Victor. His eyes widened slightly. I remember now, you're Harry Potter. Harry sighed, and to think he thought he was going to be treated norm ally for once and not like a celebrity or a nuisance. Harry nodded and showed Naruto the scar. Be lucky, Naruto, that he didn't petrify you with his gaze, the grand ol' heir of Slytherin, George said jokingly. Draco's mouth twitched uncontrollably across the hall. Naruto laughed, like I'd believe the one who vanquished you know who would be the heir of Slytherin. Harry unstiffened, eased by he thought of knowing that someone else besides the other Gryffindors didn't believe he was related at all to Slytherin. Maybe this Naruto wasn't so bad after all. Here is the potions classroom in which I teach, Severus Snape said shrewdly, opening the doors to a very dark and murky classroom located down in the dungeons of Hogwarts. The room had a distinct odor to it, and shelves upon shelves of vial and all sorts of ingredients were stacked upon it. At the front was a cauldron lit over a fire. Naruto cautiously stepped forward and toward the cauldron. The contents would have looked like water to the naked eye, but Naruto knew better, and especially so after flipping through his potions book. The contents were clearly Veritaserum. Veritaserum, Naruto said, examining the potion. Snape cocked his eyebrow. Otherwise known as a truth serum, can make a person spill his innermost secrets with only 3 drops. So it seems that Joseph was indeed correct that you are gifted in potions, Snape said, clearly impressed by Naruto's knowledge in potions. Can you tell me how long it would take to brew this potion? Snape asked, intent on knowing how much more Naruto knew. Well, from what I have read, it would take 1 lunar cycle, or about 28 days. Naruto said knowingly. Snape sighed. If only half my students knew as much as you are as knowledgeable as your mother was. Naruto stood still for a moment, trying to replay what Snape had just said. His mind took a few seconds to interpret this information. Naruto hurriedly turned around to face Snape. Why you knew my mother? Naruto stammered, taking a step closer. Snape looked away in sadness. Yes, when I was in my first year your mother was in her 5th year. Ravenclaw. I looked up to her, but sadly Kushina and her husband, Minato, had died so young and they left you parentless. Naruto stared at Snape in wonder. Did you know my father? Yes, Kushina had visited me with her husband. She was very happy at the time Beck. She was 4 months into her pregnancy with you. That was the last time I saw them before their death. Snape seemed to find something interesting on the floor as he chose to look at it. She was my friend, but it turns out I knew almost nothing about her except that she was an exceptionally kind person as was her husband. If you want to know more, I suggest you ask Dumbledore. Snape looked up and started to circle around Naruto, studying him. Finally he said, you look a lot like them. Snape opened the door and gestured for Naruto to leave. That concludes our little tour, you may continue to look around if you wish. Naruto was halfway to the door when he had an idea. Professor Snape, may I borrow a 6th year potions book? I finished reading my 5th year one and I want to read ahead for my 6th year. Snape silently nodded and took a battered textbook, Advanced Potion Making, and handed it to Naruto. Enjoy, Snape said and abruptly slammed the door, leaving Naruto to his thoughts. He walked out into the corridor and out of the castle to where the Great Lake was located. Naruto had learned that he loved to gather his thoughts and think near some kind of body of water. Naruto looked at the beaten-up book and turned to the front page. This book is the property of the Half-Blood Prince. Half-Blood Prince. Naruto pondered aloud and flipped it open. Naruto's eyebrows shot into his hair. This book was amazing. It contained advice and tips for potion brewing and some spells that the owner must have created. That's where Levicorpus came from. And what's this? Naruto's eyes trailed on in the book and landed on a very interesting spell. Sectum Sempra for enemies. This book is awesome. Naruto spent the majority of the next few hours looking back and forth into the book. The sound of snow crunching before a shadow had loomed over him as he read the book. Naruto looked up to see a boy with brown hair and gray eyes. He wore the Hogwarts robes, but unlike the Gryffindors, who wore red, he wore yellow. The color of Hufflepuff. He was wearing a heavy cloak and a black and yellow scarf that was neatly put around his neck. May I ask you what you were reading that is so enjoyable? The boy asked, trying to see the cover. Naruto closed the book and showed him the front. It's a potion-making textbook. Naruto let him take it and look at it. The boy did. In't bother to open it, instead returning it. I never met someone who was so into studying potions like you, I'm barely passing it. The boy said, showing his 4th year potions book. He abruptly sat down next to Naruto and stared blankly out to the lake. I'm Cedric, by the way. Cedric Diggory. The now named Cedric said as he looked at Naruto. Naruto grinned. I'm Naruto Uzumaki. Cedric's eyes opened slightly. Uzumaki. Uzumaki, where did I hear that? Naruto looked at Cedric in puzzlement. Cedric looked at the mountains as he tried to relay where he had heard that name. Cedric turned back to Naruto and smiled all-knowingly. Oh, right. When I was walking out of the castle, Fred and George Weasley were trying to look for you and they even asked me, but I had no idea who and or where you were. It didn't seem urgent, but they really wanted to see you. They already thought of some pranks to pull. Naruto thought as he stood up. On the ground, Cedric cast a saddened look at the ground. Naruto had seen it though. Is something wrong? Oh, nothing, it was just that I had fun talking to you, if only for a bit. To tell you the truth, I actually didn't know why I actually wanted to come over here and talk to you. I would just ignore people who would be near and sit by myself. Cedric said. Naruto looked at him and then at the distant castle. Naruto stood still for a moment, before falling on the ground with a thud, his face to the heavens. This of course had startled Cedric, who instinctively jumped. Meh, the pranks can wait for a bit, ya know. Cedric's eyebrows twitched. Pranks? You seriously are trying to get yourself killed by the teachers? Naruto closed his eyes, because the snow was getting into his eyes. A little practical joke never hurts anyone, right? Besides, it's almost Christmas. The remaining people in the school could use some perking up from this dreary atmosphere. Cedric turned away trying to hide his smirk. True, the Chamber of Secrets thing has really gotten everyone down. Hey, you're pretty good at potions, right? Do you know the potion used pep people up? I'm sure it was an elixir but I can't recall the name. Naruto tapped his chin. I think I learned this before. Prepping people, the elixir to induce euphoria. Naruto quizzically asked. That's what it was called. Cedric scribbled it into the notebook he had brought with him. Cedric, I hope you don't find me offensive or anything, but why are you here? Why aren't you hanging out with your friends? Naruto sat up and put his knees to his chest. He scratched his head. Well, most of them left for break and the ones who stayed are just admirers. I'm kind of sick of them trying to get close because I'm popular and all and they aren't even my friends at all. It's annoying really, that's why I'm here now. Really? Then I guess I'm quite thankful to those admirers of yours. Naruto said. Cedric looked confused. Why? Naruto grinned at him. If it weren't for T. You wouldn't have been here and I wouldn't have met you. He lied down again. So Seed, you play Quidditch or anything? Cedric laughed. Yeah, I play on my house team as the Seeker. Naruto joined in laughing. Really? Then you'd love my friend, Victor, he's the Seeker on my team. My friend Milos is the Beater and I'm a Chaser. Cedric's eyes grew wide. You mean Victor as in Victor Crumb? One who is being asked to join the national Bulgarian team. Yep, good old Victor, he was actually the one who told me I should play Quidditch. Naruto said. Would you mind showing me around the grounds? Snape didn't really show me around much. Sure, I can show you Hufflepuff's common room too. So, there is a large octopus at the bottom of the lake. Naruto asked as they walked to the Hufflepuff common room. Cedric nodded. I threw a rock into the lake and I swore a tentacle shot out and grabbed it. Cedric shuddered. Well, here is the entrance to our common room. They were standing in front of a still life painting near the kitchen. Cauldron cakes, Cedric said and stepped aside as the painting swung open. It revealed a very cozy and comfortable basement kind of lounge. Tea lounge armchairs and many yellow hangings lay scattered around the cellar. There were also many tunnels connected to the room. Some Hufflepuffs were looking at him, realizing that he wasn't a Hufflepuff. I guess yellow is a major theme in this house. Naruto joked looking at all the yellow banners, chairs, uniform, walls. Yeah, well this concludes our little tour. Where will you be staying? Cedric asked. Naruto paused. Oh yeah, I forgot to ask Dumbledore where I'll be staying. I guess we should go down for supper and I'll meet Fred and George there and then I'll ask Dumbledore. Naruto said as he took one last look at the bright common room. Naruto and Cedric had made it to the Great Hall in record time and Naruto had joined the Gryffindors and he encouraged Cedric to do the same. Though the other students were looking at them strangely because they never saw different house students sitting at one table, they enjoyed their supper as Naruto and the twins discussed pranks and Cedric only looked at them exasperatingly. So we sneak into Lockhart's classroom and we place an envelope that looks like a love letter to him and when he touches the letter, which we put the hair loss curse on, he loses all his hair. Fred said as he held up a letter covered in pink and red hearts addressed to Gilderoy Lockhart. Naruto looked confused. Why the hair loss curse? George answered. Lockhart is especially obsessed with his looks and imagine how he'd act when he realizes his golden hair is all gone. That isn't going too far, right? Cedric asked. Seed, we're wizards and we can do anything with magic. He can grow it back, if he knows how to that is. Fred chuckled. He took out his wand and placed the curse on the parchment and was careful to not touch it. But why target Lockhart? Cedric asked again. That prat made me and Fred reply to all his fan mail, what torture. I'd have rather do lines than answer fan mail from those crazy women. I swear I saw my mom's name on one. George shuddered. George and I will place it in his office, be sure to be ready for an ear-splitting scream later. Oh, Naruto, Dumbledore told us to tell you that you'll be staying with us in Gryffindor Tower. Alright, Naruto started. Do you notice that a few more people are not here at the supper? George looked up from his pumpkin pie. Harry, Hermione, and Ron left early, probably from exhaustion. An hour had passed and Dumbledore had stood up. It seems acceptable for all of us to tuck in now. And I expect no students out of bed. After bidding Cedric goodnight, Naruto followed Fr. Ed to where the Gryffindor common room was as for George who was waiting for Fred near Lockhart's office. The Gryffindor Tower was located behind a painting entitled, "The Fat Lady," enough said. The Pa's sword was given and the common room was decorated in red and gold. Naruto noticed that Harry, Hermione and Ron were sitting and talking in whispers. "I have to go meet with George, make yourself at home, okay?" Fred said, exiting the room. Naruto murmured an okay and walked to the fireplace where the trio were sitting. He overheard, "It should be ready on Christmas Day." Naruto stood beside them asking, "What should be done on Christmas Day?" The trio jumped from the sudden voice. Harry was the first to stammer, Naruto. We were just talking about." Hermione took the chance to continue, We were just discussing how the presents we bought would be wrapped by Christmas." Hermione ended lamely. Naruto stood and stared at the trio who were all sweating. Naruto nodded, seeming to have taken the explanation. "Well, a bit late for wrapping if it's on Christmas Day, right? So, anything about Hogwarts that I should watch out for and watch for? Anything interesting? Anything at all? Well, you should definitely watch out for Filch and Draco Malfoy." Ron grumbled, "I'm not sure about anything else." "Draco Malfoy?" Naruto inquired. "Worst git there is," Harry said approvingly. Naruto scratched his head. "Where did I hear this?" He smiled. "This Draco Malfoy reminds me of Rex Scorpius from my school. Milos gets into tussles with him all the time." "What school do you go to, by the way?" Hermione asked fervently. Naruto pointed at himself. "Me? I go to the Durmstrang Institute in Bulgaria." "You go to Durmstrang? That's where they teach the dark arts and we read the Daily Prophet says the darkest wizards attend school," Ron said, pointing an accusing finger at him. Hermione looked appalled. "Ronald, you should not always believe everything in that false newspaper." "I apologize for dear Ronald's rudeness, Naruto. Don't worry about it. I barely know anything about the school, I transferred from the elemental countries this year," Naruto said. Hermione looked at him. "Elemental countries? You mean you're a ninja?" Naruto nodded. "Wicked," Harry and Ron said. Ron forgot all about the dark arts and everything in between. Ron put his arms around Naruto's larger frame. "Maybe you are alright, mate," Ron said. "Can you show us any of your ninja moves?" Ron practically was bouncing up and down in anticipation. Though before Naruto could reply, Elle could hear a rather girlish shriek and screams about, "My beautiful hair," and, "My golden mane." Christmas Day had finally come and Naruto was having the best dream ever period. He was soaring through the midnight sky and a crescent moon was visible behind him. He was flying over the ocean and the salty mist refreshing him. He looked back and saw the feathery wings behind him. They reminded him of an angel's, but they were jet black. Suddenly the wings popped out of existence and he was falling into a never-ending sea of darkness. He did the only thing that could have come to his mind in the dream, scream for dear life. Aaaaaaaggggghhhhhhhhh. Naruto felt something hitting his face and awoke seeing a blurry figure standing over him. He used both hands to clear his eyes and saw George and Fred, who were rooming with him, standing there getting ready to slap him awake again. "Why are you screaming, mate?" George asked. Naruto was sitting up in the bed and wiping the sweat off his forehead. "Oh, I just had a strange dream. That's all." Fred threw him a towel. "Well, hurry up, Naruto. There are presents downstairs that need opening. There are some for you too." "Really?" Naruto asked curiously. They nodded and headed down to the common room. Naruto waved to the trio who were already down in the common room opening their gifts. Naruto caught an awkwardly wrapped gift from Fred. He looked at the label. "To Naruto. From Fred and George." He opened it up and saw many different prank items. Dumb bombs, belch powder, ever-bashing boomerangs, etc. And a mini box with the words, "Skiving Snack Box. You're the first to get a trial version of the snack box." Fred added. "And these presents came for you, your fox brought them." Fred pointed to the window where Naruto's pet fox was sitting and staring out of. Zero. Naruto jumped toward the fox, Zero, and petted him. "Little red fellow returned early this morning after you sent him off 2 days ago," George said amusingly. "He makes a better pet than our Errol. You gave the gifts to Victor, Milos and Raider, right?" Zero nodded and yipped happily when Naruto gave him a treat. He grabbed the 3 presents off the window sill. "Dear Naruto. Thanks for the new wizard's chess set. I hope you like my gift that is enclosed. See you in class. Your teacher and friend, Raider. P.S. Some things can be easily forgotten. I bewitched the gift with an undetectable extension charm. Don't tell anyone. Raider had given him a moleskin pouch with the words, "Most precious." He felt a lump inside and opened it. There was a translucent ball inside with a clear, gray smoke. A remembrow. Single quote. He looked at Victor's gift next. Thanks for the two-way mirror. Now when we are separated we can still contact each other. I bought this pendant from a merchant in the wizard realm. It is said to be made of a stone only found on the moon. Victor. Inside the package was a glistening purple stone with his name engraved on the back and it was connected to a silver chain. He felt George take the stone. Wow, this is an extremely rare stone, mate. What was it called again? Hermione looked at. It's the moonstone. This specimen is rare because it is the only mineral that is found on the moon and not on Earth. It was used in alchemy in the medieval times. Hermione blurted at the top of her head. That must have cost your friend a fortune. Who bought you it? Ron grabbed the letter and dropped it a second later. Victor K. Crumb bought you this. Who's Victor Crumb? Harry queried. He's only the youngest and greatest seeker to ever be asked to join a national team. His flying skills are an art. Ron retorted. And you know this Victor Crumb? Hermione mused. Naruto nodded. He and I are in the same year. Bloody hell. Ron said. Naruto opened the last gift on his lap. It contained a normal sword with a black blade, a red and white design and a flower-like end, and a red hilt and a small red string attached to the end of the sword a dragon head attached to the end of the string picture on profile. It came with a black sheath and a note. The note said, "Hey, Naruto. Thanks for the two-way mirror. Victor sent me a letter telling me he got one too. So he bought another pair for me and him and now we can contact any one of us anywhere. Anyway, this sword was my grandfather's and he said when he bought it, it was supposed to eat on a specific type of energy and that energy could mold the blade into any shape and size the wielder wishes. I don't know if it works or not since it doesn't mean magic since I tried so I was king. It might work for that chakra system thing of yours that ninjas have, not sure but if not, it's still an awesome sword. Milos, D. Are swords even allowed into Hogwarts? Hermione demanded. You're caring about rules. Look at that thing. It's brilliant. Ron exclaimed. Fred and George, who had finished reading the note, dictated, why don't you try this chakra energy and try to change the sword's form? Naruto picked up the sword and held it firmly with both hands. Red chakra formed around him, creating a red aura. He pushed the energy in and the sword started to vibrate violently and started to change slightly. But ultimately returned to its normal form. You can't just pump chakra into it and expect the thing to take a different shape, Kit. Kyuubi chuckled in its cage. It takes practice. Concentration and more practice. The wielder must know the form he wants the sword to take and put the right amount of chakra in. I guess I should practice more. Naruto joked more to himself than to the others. Oh right. Dumbledore sent a memo for me to tell you he wants to see you as soon as you got up though you should probably leave the sword in your luggage case. George professed. Just in case anyone tries to take it, he looked at Ron. Yeah. Naruto put away the sword and left for the headmaster's office. Dumbledore had been outside his office waiting for Naruto. He led Naruto up and Naruto sat across from Dumbledore's desk. Can I be of service, Dumbledore? Naruto asked as he folded his arms. Yes, indeed. I was told to give this to you when you came of the age of 15 by your parents. Dumbledore had produced a box with many dust particles on it. As you see, it has been sitting on my shelves for the past 15 years since I saw them. Why don't you open it? Naruto had taken the dusty lid and he saw a letter, a metal hilt, a metal circle with a handle, and a large scroll much like Jiraiya's. He took the letter first and silently read it. Naruto. I hope Had you were not to receive this letter anytime because it was only as a last resort if anything were to happen to your mother and me, but if you were reading this, something had already happened to us. Your mother and I had decided to place these items in Dumbledore's care because we trust him with our lives as we do the Sandaime. I guess I should get on with it as your mother is telling me to. In the box, you will find an ordinary hilt, a circular disc with a handle and your mother's summoning scroll. The weapons were passed down from generation to generation in my family and I hope to pass it on to you, my son. The hilt is actually a Z-saber. Only those in our clan can hope to activate the sword, and in order to do so all you must do is call upon it to activate, and the sword recognizes our unique blood. Only when you have unlocked that special power may you use these weapons. The disc will activate into a shield which can deflect most attacks. The scroll is your mother's summoning contract with the eternal flame birds. She wishes that you sign it as she and I both did, and Dumbledore too. Good luck to you in your darkest moments, and remember that your mother and I will always be there beside you. Your loving and awesome parents, Minato and Kushina. Naruto looked at the contents of the letter again and adjusted back to the box. Unique blood, Naruto thought. He put the letter down and took the scroll. He opened it to see. Kushina Uzumaki, Minato Namikaze, Albus Dumbledore. You signed the Phoenix contract, sir? Naruto questioned Dumbledore. His eyes twinkled. Ah, yes. He stroked his beard. I remember when your mother was talking to me one day and had asked if I wished to sign the contract myself. And knowing that I had a liking for phoenixes like Fox over here, I agreed. Do you know anything about these weapons? Naruto also asked as he showed Dumbledore the box's other two contents. Dumbledore gingerly picked the hilt and disc up and examined them. Dumbledore nodded. I remember seeing your father use these when he was fighting. His voice trailed off. Naruto waved his hands to grasp his attention again. Do you know what he means when he mentioned Unik, UE blood, and what clan he was talking about? Yes, indeed, I do, but you must find out the answer yourself, and you shall in due time. Dumbledore said. But for now, you may enjoy the day and have supper in the Great Hall before departing tomorrow for Beauxbatons in France. Naruto nodded and took the box and made way to the door. He stopped however when he heard Dumbledore addressing him. I think it is wise if you were not to tell your friends or anyone of this moment, yet. Dumbledore said. Why? Why what? Dumbledore asked confusedly. Naruto opened his mouth to speak but chose not to say anything as he exited the room. Sad you have to leave so soon, mate. Fred said. Fred, George, Cedric, the Golden Trio, and Dumbledore were standing at the gate, bidding him farewell. Snape W. As most likely somewhere disciplining random students. Naruto had his luggage case in his arms and the empty cage in his other hand. His mokeskin pouch was where his kunai pouch had been. Inside were his father's weapons. His scroll where he sealed his mother's summoning scroll, his remembrall. He had Victor's necklace around his neck and Milo's sword put safely away in his luggage case. Harry had given him a thin pouch for his wand that could be strapped to his waist, and where it is now on the left side of his waist. Zero was yipping excitedly beside him. Thanks for the wonderful visit, I hope I can come again next year. Naruto waved one last time before walking down to the train in Hogsmeade. He looked at the train. Damn, spending a few more hours on another train. Naruto sighed tiredly. He had sat on the train that had departed for about an hour, and now he was standing in front of Beauxbatons, well rather on a mountain near the school. The school was levitating on a piece of earth. In the air with a chain attached to the earth. There was a wall around the castle and a large wooden front gate. The most notable feature was a 10-story clock tower. This wasn't a castle, it was a palace. The school was also moving along, much to Naruto's shock. And even more shocking was that a rainbow-like bridge had just extended from the piece of land and connected to where Naruto was standing. Naruto took a hollow step to make sure that the rainbow bridge was real and solid, and to reassure him that if he were to walk on it, he wouldn't fall to his demise. His foot didn't phase through. Naruto walked slowly to the school and Zero just ran up ahead of him courageously. He had walked past a beautiful garden filled with all sorts of flowers, and he noticed a fountain with two embracing lovers in the middle. Damn, this is high class, Naruto muttered. And here he was now, in front of the main doors. He looked at Zero and took a deep breath. He pushed the door open, hoping to find all sorts of strange and wonderful things as he did at Hogwarts. Here goes, Naruto said as he pushed open the grand doors to the Beauxbatons palace. He was now in a corridor much like Hogwarts, but it was much cleaner here. He looked around for a while and he was about to go through the large wooden door that most likely led to the Great Hall in the school, but something stopped him. He was hearing two people talking around the corner. A male and a female. He shook his head and tried to leave them alone, but his better judgment told him better. He snuck up slowly to the edge and peeked over. He saw a boy that was maybe his height with dirty blonde hair and wearing a blue robe with the drawing of a small golden phoenix on the left side of his chest. He had his right arm pressed against the wall, which prevented the other person from leaving. He strained his neck to see the other person and was in awe at her. She had platinum blonde hair that was tied in a ponytail, crystal blue eyes, a flawless face, and a smoking body to boot. Kyuubi added, wolf whistling or fox whistling. Shut it, perverted fox bastard. Naruto thought angrily, finding that he was agreeing with the fox too. The girl was wearing a silky, light blue uniform and a hat was being held in her arms, and she was his height too. She was incredibly beautiful. The guy was looking at her smugly. He moved closer though oh his dismay, she moved back until she was pressed against the wall. I told you already, I do not want to be your girlfriend. The girl said angrily, trying in vain to push him away. He roughly grabbed her shoulders and looked at her, his eyes flaring. Why not? I confessed to you a numerous amount of times, and I even see you staring at me all the time during class. So, why not? She struggled from his firm grip. I wasn't staring at you. You sit right in front of the teacher. So I, avenue to look past you. But you like me, right? Even my friends say we would make a nice couple. It's not like you have a boyfriend. The blonde-haired boy exclaimed. If I, avenue a boyfriend is none of your business. No, I do not like you. Not at all. So, please leave me alone. She begged as she weakened against his iron grip. Naruto couldn't take it anymore and stepped out from his hiding spot, saying, Hey! What are you doing to her? The two jumped and the girl managed to get away from his hold. The boy glared at him. Who are you? He asked accusingly, his eyes darting to the girl who had run behind Naruto, obscuring her from the guy's view. Who am I? I'll tell you who I am. Naruto quickly leaned back and whispered to the girl. What's your name? Fleur, she said quickly and timidly. Naruto stood up straighter, though the shorter boy didn't seem to notice as he glared at Naruto for getting in his way. I'm Fleur's boyfriend. And what were you trying to do to my girlfriend? Naruto stood and looked at him passively. Boyfriend. Fleur didn't mention she had a boyfriend. The boy said as he stepped back. It turns out that Naruto was actually way taller and more built than him. If I had KN, he didn't finish before he was hoisted into the air by his collar. If I see you making a pass or any gesture at my girl again, you will never have children. Naruto said menacingly, his eyes flashed red, which nearly made the boy soil his pants. Naruto dropped him. The boy scrambled to his feet and bowed repeatedly before running and tumbling away. Fleur let out her breath. Thank you, avenue been trying to get rid of, I am for a while now. Is there any way I can repay you? Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto said. Don't mention it, though I would like your full name, Miss Fleur. Fleur giggled. Fleur Delacour, but please call me Fleur. All right, Madame Fleur, would a lady like yourself mind showing a clueless peasant like me around? Naruto asked as he offered her his arm. Surely, Monsieur Naruto, I would be delighted to. Fleur wrapped her arm around his and led him to the great hall. Naruto looked around the elegant corridor and realized he was really sweating and Zero was gone. He must have gone to look around the school. They were in front of the double doors again. Naruto took a second to take his cloak and hat off and putting it in his luggage in his other arm. Fleur led him into their dining hall. The hall was just as big as Hogwarts and Durmstrang's. There were large and long tables located in the hall. The hall had banners of phoenixes and dragons placed around. The teachers and headmaster were sitting at the front enjoying their meal. Naruto's eyes bugged out of his head. There was a choir of nymphs at the side, serenading the students and faculty, and many ice sculptures placed around. The hall was filled with music and low mutterings of the occupants. Students near the door, especially the guys, looked toward where Naruto and Fleur were, though they were mostly looking at Fleur. Fleur dragged him to the table where other girls and boys wore the same uniform with the small phoenixes. Naruto looked at the food, which consisted of mouth-watering yet healthier and way more nutritious food than Hogwarts and Durmstrang has. I wonder where Alex is. Fleur wondered as she looked at the table with the small dragons etched on the student's uniform. Alex? Naruto inquired as he pushed the bouillabaisse or fish soup away, which resulted in it tipping over and spilling on the ground. Fleur nodded. She is my best friend even though she is in the Mighty Tail, Aus and I am in the Firewing, Aus. Fleur, a tall girl, taller than him at least, had burst into the hall, panting. She wore the same uniform Fleur did but with a dragon instead of a phoenix on her uniform. She had long, silky black hair that cascaded down to her waist and beautiful violet eyes. She ran up the aisle and skid to stop where Naruto and Fleur were but she had ended up slipping on Naruto's spilled bouillabaisse. Ah! She fell over onto Naruto who was not expecting a girl to randomly fall on him. His ninja instincts had caused him to put his arms up to prevent her from getting hurt but only ended up catching Alex in a rather awkward position. Alex blinked before her face grew red. Having noticed how he was holding onto her, she jumped out of his embrace and immediately started shrieking, "Pervert!" She tried to take several swings at him, each one missing him. He was a ninja after all. "Hey, calm down," Naruto pleaded to no prevail. "What did I do? You were feeling me up." She fumed. "Pervert." "Alex, stop," Fleur scolded. "Why should I?" Alex continued her rage. "He was trying to take advantage of me." "You've got it all wrong," Fleur contended. Alex stopped her assault to look at Fleur. "You slipped and he tried to catch you to not let you get hurt," explained Fleur. Alex looked back at Naruto then at Fleur. She huffed and took a seat next to Fleur. Fleur smiled. "Isn't that better? Now, how about you guys introduce yourselves?" Naruto was the first to offer his hand to her. "I'm Naruto." Alex crossed her arms and turned her head the opposite way. "Alex Cafe and I still think you're a pervert." Naruto's eyes and fingers twitched involuntarily. Fleur's sweat dropped. "Well, now that we're friends, kind of, I can show you around after lunch and Alex can help me." Naruto continued to eat in silence, mumbling something that sounded like, "Stupid, annoying girl." Alex and Naruto had spent the time eating, glaring at each other and Fleur swore she saw sparks flaring in their eyes. "These was not how I expected them to meet," Fleur thought exasperatingly. Alex and Fleur had shown him around and they were back in the hall again. Just in time for dinner too. Naruto looked at the newer variety of food and helped himself to a crepe. As he did so, Alex thought it was the right time to ask what was on her mind. "Hey, Fleur, how did you meet Whiskers over here anyway?" Alex smirked. Naruto grew a tick and thought, "Whiskers? Well, do you remember that guy who is in my house, the 7th year? The one who keeps trying to ask me out?" Fleur responded. Alex nodded and shivered. "You mean the stalker guy? Can't he take no for an answer? What a creep. He cornered me in the corridor and tried to ask me to go out with again and he even thought I liked him and I think Eastmite Avenue even tried to force me to be his girlfriend if Naruto hadn't come to my rescue." Fleur explained. Alex turned to Naruto. "So, you helped Fleur out?" Naruto nodded. "HMPH, I guess that makes you okay, but I still think you're a perv." And just Fleur and Naruto thought she would stop calling him a pervert. And yep, Naruto was definitely growing a chronic twitch. "So, perverted Whiskers, where are you from anyway? The uniform looks familiar," Alex asked as she saw him face palming. I go to Durmstrang," Naruto sighed. "Well, not exactly what I expected, judging by your uniform. Is it cold there?" Alex asked again. "A lot colder there than here." Naruto just noticed something. Fleur. Who's the mini you staring at me?" Naruto pointed to the reduced size Fleur sitting next to Fleur and looking shyly at Naruto. "Oh my. I forgot to introduce you to my 10-year-old sister, Gabrielle," Fleur stated. "This is Naruto, Gabrielle." Gabrielle murmured a hello, and turned to face the other side of the table to hide her red face. "Does she go here?" Naruto asked. "No, she will zo, but she is visiting me and staying with a friend of hers in first year for Christmas." Fleur smiled and Naruto blushed. Naruto's BL/USH reduced as he noticed that even in a mass of girls and boys wearing the same uniform, Fleur and her sister seemed to be the ones that stood out the most. "Weird. It looks like it's time to go to bed," Alex said as she yawned and stretched. Everyone in the dining hall was filing out and up to their dorms when Naruto, Alex, and Fleur were stopped. Naruto definitely could not believe his eyes. In front of him was a hugely tall lady, wearing a fur dress and high stilettos. She was bigger than Hagrid. Fleur and Alex stood up straightly. Madame Maxime, they acknowledged. Are you the Naruto that Dumbledore told me about? She asked. Naruto nodded profusely. It seems that when Dumbledore had notified me that you were visiting, I was not able to find an extra room, so you will be sharing the room with 3 beds with Miss Delacour, the limp Maxime said. Naruto's face turned beet red and his heart leapt. Share a room with Fleur. The gods were smiling upon him at last. And Miss Cafe. Madame Maxime finished. Screw you. God, Naruto's happiness blew over just as quickly as it came. He had to share a room with her, too. Well, at least Fleur is there too. What? I have to share a room with a perverted moron? Alex implored. Yeah, hey, I'm not a perverted moron. Naruto shouted. It seems you two will become fast friends. Madame Maxime said knowledgeably as she nodded to herself. What? They yelled together before glaring at each other. This was going to be a long week. Naruto was lying on the bed next to the window in the large room. Alex was filing her nails and rowing dirty looks at Naruto every few seconds while Fleur was writing a letter to her parents. Zero was staring at Alex's and Fleur's owls like they were all meat, which they were. Well, I mean, you know what I mean. Hey, Whiskers, get your dirty mutt away from my precious owl. Alex commanded. He's a fox is one thing, and two, is that even an owl to begin with? It's so small and petite. Naruto retorted. Whatever. Just get him away from my owl. Alex shouted back as she got off the bed and toward Zero. Zero looked at Alex for a second, before pouncing on her and licking her face. Eek. Get him off me, said a wailing Alex. Zero continued to lick her face happily. Naruto started rolling on his bed and clutching his sides from the pain of laughing so much. Ha 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 ha. Good boy, Zero. Naruto wiped a tear from his eye and whistled for Zero. Come on, Zero, enough patronizing Alex even if it is funny. Zero looked at Naruto, his tongue still hanging from his mouth, and bounded toward Naruto and onto his bed. Alex quickly got up, her face covered in fox drool and slobber. Ew. My face. My clothes. Alex shrieked. What a vulgar pet. Bad fox. Bad fox. She ran into the bathroom to clean the saliva off her face. Naruto lied upside down on his bed again. Fleur was still writing on the letter parchment. What's so important that you have to send the letter to your parents tonight, Fleur? Fleur put down her quill and looked at Naruto. I forgot to send the presents I got for my parents, so I wrote that I was sorry I forgot and thank you for my gift. And I'm going to attach the gifts to my owl. And Fleur did just that as she tied the envelope and gift onto the white owl's legs. The owl set off to its destination forthwith. Alex had walked out of the bathroom with a towel in hand, and it looked like she was trying to pry her face off. Why won't this come off? Alex continued to glare at Zero, who was sitting and watching joyfully. So, Fleur started. So, Alex also said. So, Naruto said. Do you like bobatons? Fleur asked as she propped herself onto her hands. Naruto scratched his chin. I haven't seen much, but I guess it's alright so far. It is very elegant and classy. Or at least more so than Hogwarts and Durmstrang. The three of them sat there. In silence. A very long silence. A longer silence swept the room. Alex saw this as the moment to take charge. Enough with this silence, let's do something more interesting. Like what? Naruto asked, fearing her answer. Alex and Fleur looked at each other before squealing. Girl talk. He was right. He was screwed. They used very loosely, had spent 2 hours talking about boys, girls, boys, clothes, boys, and did I mention boys? So, after he cheated on me and he even admits it. He has the nerve to ask me what the problem was, and he was my first kiss, my first boyfriend, and I mean You understand, right? Alex huffed as Fleur looked at her and nodded in agreement as she finished painting her toes. What a jerk, Fleur commented. As they were doing that, Naruto was banging his head against the wall murmuring, Lord, kill me now. He was close to unconsciousness at last. Yes, he was prevented, however, from his bliss when Fleur had asked him an interesting question. So, who was your first kiss, Naruto? Fleur asked with a weird look in her eyes. Naruto blushed and muttered inaudibly. What? Fleur and Alex asked together. Sasuke Uchiha. A boy, Alex asked, thinking that the name sounded rather masculine. Why yeah, are you gay? Alex asked as Fleur turned red. No. It was by accident. I fell and well, we kinda kissed, Naruto explained as he scratched his head lightly. So, you're not gay? Alex asked again. Naruto deadpanned. I am not gay. Are you sure? Alex asked again, intent on annoying Naruto further. Naruto stayed silent, trying to contain his temper at this girl. Alex, what did I tell you about pushing people's buttons? Fleur asked as she gave Alex a look. Alex sighed. Alright, I'll stop. For now, Alex laughed maniacally in her imaginary world. That's a start. So, you are completely and definitely sure that you are not gay. I mean, we'll accept you if you come out of the closet and tell us, Alex said again. Quote ellipsis. Quote. Alex. Fleur wearied. Sorry. It's too tempting. Who was your first kiss, Fleur? Alex asked. Changing the subject, turning away and grinning as Naruto continued to rant about him not being homosexual and something about fishes was it. Or witches. It was Fleur's turn to blush. I never had my first kiss yet. This perked Naruto's and Alex's interest. You never had your first kiss? Alex mused. Fleur turned completely red. It's not funny. I haven't found the right someone yet. Alex nodded in understanding. You're waiting for your knight in shining armor, So, why not kiss Whiskers? He saved you, right? So, why not get it over with? Alex. Both Naruto and Fleur exclaimed. Once again. Sorry. Alex started. But by the way you rejected so fast, do you want to kiss each other? Alex asked slyly. No. They shouted together again, turning even redder. If that was possible. Fine. She waved her hand. Stop overreacting, I was only joking. Only joking, Naruto laughed nervously. Right. Fleur put her slender hands over her heart and breathed deeply. Regaining her composure, Alex turned back to Fleur and continued their girl talk. So, like I was saying before, when I saw the other woman, I was like, And she's like, PFT. And I'm like, Naruto continued to bash his head. Screw me. It was early in the morning when Naruto had decided to get up earlier than Alex and Fleur to get some grub due to his rumbling stomach. Last night was horrible in his opinion because Alex and Fleur had spent the entire time talking about all sorts of girly things, the word fight never even came up. I mean, fights are awesome. And here, he was, bound by ropes and squashed between two rather large. Guys. It seems the boy who was harassing Fleur wanted revenge on him. But getting bigger and tougher classmates to do it for him. Coward. I don't care if you are Fleur's boyfriend. She's mine, the boy stated as though it was a fact. He walked up to Naruto and put his face close to Naruto's. So, me and my buddies here, he pats his buddies on the chest. Seeing that he couldn't reach their shoulder. Are going to teach you a lesson, or if you want, you can just break up with Fleur, she'll run into my arms, you'll never talk to her again and we'll let you home free. I understand, Naruto said, nodding as he and the boy smiled. He spat the saliva he had gathered in his mouth in his face. That you're the one who needs to be taught a lesson. He easily snapped the ropes and delivered a sweep kick at the two tall boys. They fell over groaning and Naruto kicked both in the face, knocking them unconscious. The stalker boy was against the wall. Naruto walked toward him, smiling devilishly. And then there was one. Naruto cracked his knuckles and proceeded to his beatdown. Naruto sat at the firewing table in the grand hall, eating to his heart's content. He was having a good day so far. He was having a nice breakfast and a half-hour earlier he had beaten the snot out of an arrogant prick. Yep, a wonderful start for a day. Fleur and Alex had emerged from the door and walked to Naruto's spot. Naruto had just learned that girls have an appetite just as large as his. You look happy today, Whiskers. Alex noticed. What did you do? Oh, some of this. Some of that. Naruto grinned, which included beating the boogers out of a certain stalking 7th year who tried to teach me a lesson. He tried to gang up on you. Alex said through a mouthful of pancakes. Yeah, I don't think he'll ever bother you again, Fleur. Naruto said. Fleur was afraid to ask, but, what did you do to, I am? Well, Naruto said. Let's say he's tied up right now and in a very sticky situation with his friends. Mwahahahaha. In a supply closet, a boy could be seen tied to his goons and gagged between the two's heavy bod. I ease over a large cauldron filled with God knows what. It was smoking though. They were swinging and their hopes of living depended on the rope they were bound by, which was being gnawed away by a tiny mouse that Naruto, accidentally, placed there. MMPPHHH. By the time they find them, they'll have been boiled to a crisp. Naruto continued his evil laugh. That's why you never mess with Naruto. Mwahahahaha. You can stop now, you're starting to scare me, Whiskers. Alex stated, scooting away. Ha 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 ha. Quote ellipsis dot. Fleur, could you please hand me that empty bowl over there? Alex asked Po. Lightly to Fleur as Naruto continued to laugh hysterically. Fleur grabbed the bowl and was about to hand it to Alex before stopping short and retracting her hand. Why? Fleur asked suspiciously. Oh, nothing, Alex started innocently. I'm just going to use it to bash Whiskers upside the head until he stops laughing like a maniac. Fleur sighed and pushed the bowl and other blunt objects away from Alex's reach. Alex pouted before reaching into her robe. I forgot. I have my wand with me. She laughed. Alex pointed her wand at Naruto before reciting, Silencio. Ha 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 ha. Naruto stopped short as his voice was muted. He tried to yell, but even though his mouth moved, nothing came out. He flailed his arms around. Alex sighs contentedly and continues her breakfast while Fleur does the only thing she could do at that moment. Sweat drop. Several days have passed and Naruto was now standing in the snow. Over the past few days, he, Fleur and Alex had spent most of their time together and they were just as tight as he was with Victor and Milos. The palace was motionlessly due to the large amounts of snow. It was cold. Naruto had on only a black scarf, a white t-shirt, and black pants. Why was he doing this? Well, it is Naruto. So, Naruto was holding the sword that Milos had gotten him for Christmas in his right hand. He was covered in cold sweat. Work, you damn sword. Naruto exclaimed as he thrust the sword around. Change. The sword seemed to be ignoring him as it stayed the same. Naruto closed his eyes and tried to force the chakra into it. You should try to calm down and just go with the flow, kid. Kyuubi muttered, bored of Naruto's random display. What? Naruto asked aloud. Kyuubi rolled his eyes. Think what you want to say, I can read your thoughts. Okay, so what? Stop forcing your chakra into the thing and just let it flow through you and into the sword. Kyuubi said, still bored. Just let it flow. Naruto thought. He closed his eyes and concentrated. He let loose a flare of icy blue chakra but only put a small amount into the blade. The sword had begun to glow enchantingly bright before settling down. It looked the same, wait. It was slightly longer. I did it. Naruto laughed as he did a victory dance in the snow. Quote ellipsis dot. Put more chakra into it. Kyuubi commanded. Why? Just do it. Naruto pushed a bit more and into his amazement the sword had become a long katana. Its signature black steel was still the same. Woohoo! I can do it. Another random dance commences. You know, it was your first time working with something like this and I honestly have to say, Kyuubi started. Naruto's ears perked up. Was this a sort of compliment from the mighty nine-tailed fox? Yeah, you suck at it, Kyuubi chuckled at Naruto's expression. Hey, well you do. The way you hold the sword is atrocious, your stance is all wrong. A child could work the sword's shape-shifting powers better, need I go on? Kyuubi stated. Naruto was just standing silently. He forced himself into his mindscape and was now standing in front of Kyuubi with his head low. Ah, did I hurt little Naruto's feelings? Kyuubi mocked. Naruto lifted his head. Naruto's yes shone with determination as he asked, can you teach me how to use the sword correctly, Kyuubi? Kyuubi blinked in surprise. What? Naruto started to pout cutely and his eyes enlarged greatly. Petit puis, Lord Kyuubi. You are scaring me, kid. You look exactly like my kids. Kyuubi shuddered as Naruto looked at him, shocked. You have kids? Naruto asked. Kyuubi's sweat dropped at the personality change. Of course I have children, did you expect me not to? Yes. Naruto nodded his head to emphasize the point. Damn you. So will you teach me or not? Naruto asked again. Kyuubi was silent before answering. Since you asked so nicely, no. Come on. Please. Pretty please. No. Pretty please. Naruto chanted. No. Please. Kyuubi sighed, this was going to go on for quite some time. Naruto was walking back into the school palace. Kyuubi was still stubbornly rejecting the idea of teaching him how to use the sword, but he had his ways to make Kyuubi submit eventually. All he needed now were some whips, rope, a taser, and cute bunny rabbits. Hem. You didn't hear that from me. You like him, don't you? Naruto heard as he stood in front of the door to his, Fleur's, and Alex's room. Naruto cocked his head as he continued to listen. Yeah, but I don't know if I should tell him or not, it may be a bit too early to tell him. He could hear Fleur say. Naruto imagined that Alex had her arms crossed. If Naruto really is our friend, then he'll be fine when you tell him you're Avila, and he's bound to find out eventually. A good friend would tell him before he finds out a different way. Avila. I know, but I'm just afraid he'll be like all the other guys and he might think I hypnotized him into being my friend and to help me and all. And what if he thinks I'm a filthy half-breed? Fleur half said, half asked, sadness in her tone. He won't. Even if he is a pervert. Naruto twitches, I know Whiskers, he'll just shrug it off. Have faith in him, Fleur. You told all of our other friends and they didn't seem to mind, they even thought it was cool. Besides, it's not a huge secret that could destroy the world if you told him. There was a pause. So, promise you'll tell him tomorrow before he leaves. Fleur said in a more happy tone. All right, I'll tell him. Naruto could hear them moving toward the door and he dashed off before the door swung open. What's Avila? Naruto wondered aloud as he walked to the library. He walked in and began his search. It's under magical creatures, right? Naruto grabbed a book and flipped through. Aha, found it. Naruto looked at the paragraphs on Velas. Velas. Vela are a race of semi-human, semi-magical creatures reminiscent of the sirens. See previous page for more information, of Greek mythology. They appear to be young, beautiful human women, and their appearance and especially their dance are magically seductive to almost all males. When Vela are angry, however, they transform into something more like harpies. See previous pages. Their faces turn into cruel-beaked bird heads and long scaly wings burst from their shoulders, and they can launch balls of fire from their hand. Vela have been known to marry human men, although it is unknown whether any have married muggles. Children of these unions are half Vela, and they will inherit magical ability from their fathers and beauty and charm from their mothers. Vela traits seem to persist for at least a few generations. Children of Vela were usually half Vela and their children were 1/4 Vela. Velas are common Why known to choose strong mates. Their blood usually attracted to very strong males. Their Vela instincts demand for a strong mate. Velas were sometimes ridiculed along with others such as vampires, goblins and such. The reason for this was because most think of them as half-breeds, which were the correct term but is more known as an insult. For more information on cruelty toward half-breeds, turn to page 539. So Fleur's a Vela? Naruto asked to no one in particular. Kyuubi decided to put his 2 cents in. Well, she isn't a full Vela. If my senses are correct, she may be either 1/4 or 1/8 Vela. No wonder she was so hot. Naruto rolled his eyes at the last part. So, why is she afraid to tell me? Naruto thought to the Kyuubi. Didn't you read it, kid? Children of Velas are known as half-breeds. And, Naruto asked, still not getting it. Quote ellipsis dot. People believed that they were inferior to half-bloods and especially inferior to pure bloods, so they ridiculed half-breeds from society. They have only been treated right recently due to laws being put into effect. Kyuubi said blandly. And how do you know all this? Kyuubi rolled his eyes. It was in the book and I am the Kyuubi no Kitsune. Ruler of Makai, I should know about other world affairs. He finished lamely. Right. Naruto said before hearing Kyuubi giggle. What's so funny? Oh nothing, I was just hinking what it'd be like if you were to become the Vela girl's mate. Another giggle fit, it sounded kind of perverted now. And then you'd have to mate in with your stamina. Kyuubi was angulf. In his perverted thoughts as Naruto shook his head, a look of disgust on his face. Pervert, he thought. Naruto shut his book and left it there as he walked out of the library. He still heard Cube Eyes laughing fit in his muttering of, sad Dex. Wait, it might have been, mad sex. Perv, Naruto said as he blushed a pretty red crimson. Victor sighed as he walked into the boys' dorm in Durmstrang. I wish vacation had lasted longer, he thought. He sighed again as he unpacked his bags. Naruto and Milos aren't even back yet, sigh. He swore that he heard footsteps, but he was sure he was the only back from vacation. Everyone else was coming back tomorrow. He let loose another sigh. He must still be on cloud 9, because he heard the footsteps coming toward him. The sound of crunching resembled the sound of someone walking on a sandy beach wearing sandals. He turned slowly around to see nothing. Victor let out his breath. I am losing it. Is this Naruto Uzumaki's room? He heard a monotonous voice say to his right. Victor nearly jumped out of his skin as he snapped his head around to see a 15-year-old boy with coppery red hair and black lines around his eyes that looked like mascara, or that he was insomniac. The boy had his arms crossed as he waited for an answer. How did you get in here? Victor asked as he tried to calm his nerves. The boy remained silent before asking again. Is this Naruto Uzumaki's room? Victor steeled his nerves before retorting, and who is asking? The boy continued to stare at Victor, saying in an emotionless voice, I'm Gaara of the Sand. Naruto was standing in the garden with Zero and his luggage. Fleur was fidgety and Alex looked bored. It was the day he was going to return to Durmstrang. The palace was docked near the train station. I guess this is goodbye. Naruto asked unsurely. Naruto, Fleur started, can I talk to you privately over air before you leave? Naruto saw Alex smile as she looked the other way. Sure. She led him a few feet from Alex. You may have been wondering why I seemed a bit different from the others in the school. She let out a breath. Well, it's because Naruto interrupted her, however, as he said. I know, because you're a Vila. Fleur gulped. Why you know? Fleur asked. Yeah, I don't really know what the big deal is though. You were born that way, you couldn't change it. And frankly I think it makes no difference to what I think or what anyone thinks about you, nothing more nothing less. Naruto shrugged after the speech. Really? Fleur asked. Yep. Naruto grinned. Eden gave her his signature foxy grin and thumbs up pose. He was shocked when Fleur moved closer and gave him a hug. Yes, Naruto's face resembled a tomato now. Thank you for your kind words. I have always thought of me being part Vila as both a gift and a curse, but because of you, I think of it only as a gift now. Thank you. She continued to hug him before Alex coughed into her fist. As much as I enjoy this heart-warming scene, Whiskers is going to be late for his train back to Bulgaria. You can confess your undying love for each other when he comes to visit us at your house for summer vacation. They blushed and Fleur let go of Naruto. Visit you in France for the summer? Naruto asked, a light pink hue adorning his face. Fleur nodded. Yes, can you make it? Sure. When? I'll send you a letter later. Fleur said. The three of them smiled. Naruto could hear the train's horn signaling its near departure. I'm going to be late. Naruto yelled as he ran for gate. Wait, Naruto, Whiskers. Alex and Fleur yelled for him. They caught up to him. You didn't think you could just leave without a goodbye, right, Whiskers? Alex stated. She was trying in vain to hug him but just agreed to a friendly handshake. Goodbye, pervert. Goodbye, crazy girl. Naruto grinned as Alex grew a twitch. Fleur gave him another hug before kissing him of both cheeks, a way the French said goodbye to friends. Naruto blushed. Again. Goodbye, Naruto. Naruto ran off as he looked back to see Alex and Fleur waving him off. See you during the summer. They both exclaimed. Naruto laughed. You bet. He laughed all the way to the train. Naruto plopped himself onto the seat in the empty train compartment. He looked at an imaginary checklist in his head. Went to Hogwarts and Bobatons. Check. Met some nice people at both schools. Check. Met some arrogant pricks at both schools. Check. Beat up some prats. Check. Met a really annoying girl. Check. Met a really pretty girl. Check. Got 2 pecks on the cheek from said pretty girl. Check. Learned how the sword worked, sort of. Check. Got insulted by the Kyuubi. Check. He almost forgot to do something on the list. Hey, Kyuubi. Naruto thought. What, you brat? I'm trying to sleep. Can you teach me how to use the sword now? No. How about now? Quote. Pretty please. Naruto rambled. Shut up. Naruto grinned. Annoy the Kyuubi so much that he'll have to teach me how to work the sword. Half a check. Ha 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 ha. Laugh like an idiot all the way back to school. Check. A girl in her 6th year is walking down a corridor of the Durmstrang castle. She hums to herself as she makes her way down to her destination. Unknown to her, a figure looms within the shadow, following her, studying her. The figure moves to make their move. A hand shoots out from within the shadow, grabbing the girl in a chokehold. She struggles in vain before falling limp in the figure's arms, and they disappear into the darkness. The silhouettes only having been illuminated by the flash of lightning. Man, who knew spending such a long time on a train could make your ass go numb, Milos whined as he and Naruto exited the train with their luggage in hand. Zero was running happily around for the first time since the train ride on solid ground. Milos was holding an egg in his hand that Naruto just noticed at the moment. "Hey, what's that egg in your hand?" Naruto asked as they walked to the castle. "I don't know. My parents bought it for me because I didn't have a pet. Maybe it's a dragon or something cool." Milos grinned, as they blended in with the mass of students getting into the school. The school was in turmoil with so many of its students in the halls trying to get to their dorms. The teachers trying in vain to calm the ruckus. Naruto and Milos pushing through as best as they could. After an hour of trying to, they finally made it to their rooms. They let out a sigh of relief and started to unpack their things. "Naruto. Victor was supposed to be back already, right?" Milos asked. Naruto nodded as he took out his cell phone and checked his messages. "Yeah, he texted me the day before and said he was on the train to Durmstrang." Naruto put the phone away as the door creaked open. A disheveled Victor walked in. Milos was stifling laughter as Naruto smirked in amusement. "What happened to you?" Naruto asked, lifting an eyebrow. Victor's right eye twitched. "Mass, horde, students, rave, scariest moment in my life. Couldn't have been that bad." Naruto chuckled as Victor gave him a death glare. Victor walked to the nightstand beside his bed and pulled out a scroll. He walked over to Naruto and handed it to him. "This is for you," Victor said, "from someone named Gaara." Gaara came by. "What did he say?" Naruto bellowed as he stashed the scroll away for a later time. Victor shrugged. "Nothing much, the fella didn't say much, he didn't seem very open to conversation." "Maybe you should tell him to be more social," Victor commented. Naruto and Milos' sweat dropped. "Yeah, 'cause you're real social, Vicky." Milos grinned cheekily. Victor's mouth twitched dangerously. "At least, I can talk to a girl and not get slapped afterwards." Naruto clutched his side as he exclaimed, "Oh, burn." "Hey," Milos yelled indignantly, "it only happened 7 times. And only 2 took out their wands on me." He curled int. A ball and sulked in the corner of their room. It was Naruto's and Victor's turn to sweat drop. "Right," Naruto drawled. He turned to Victor. "So, Gaara didn't say anything?" "No. So how was your visit home?" "My mom and dad had all my relatives over when I arrived. We had a small party before most of them got wasted." Victor sighed as he rubbed his temples. "Hey," Naruto started, "you don't have an accent anymore." He pointed at Victor. "Yeah, after they finished with their hangover, they sat me down and coached me through a long English lesson." Victor grimaced at the memory. "So, how I am able to say, we, instead of, they. I still can't believe it took so many days for me to pronounce the letter, W, correctly. That is one sad Christmas story," Milos said, pulling a bag of chips out of nowhere. "There was one good thing that happened." Victor paused as he looked at Milos and Naruto. "The presents." Victor pulled the presents he received from the 2 and others from his duffel bag. Milos' eyes became saucers as he looked at one of the gifts. "No way." Milos gasped as he tried reach for it. Yes, it is." Victor nodded. A bright array of colors formed in the back. K-ground as Victor assumed super deformed version. The super rare, signed, ultimate edition of Notoru Keizumu. He held up the glowing, golden manga as Milos grovelled on the ground and Naruto staring at them with question marks around his head. Notoru Keizumu. Naruto wondered. "What's that?" Victor's jaw dropped as Milos let out a girlish shriek to the heavens. "You don't know about Notoru?" Milos grabbed Naruto and shook him violently. "That's blasphemy. Come brother Victor, we must enlighten him." Naruto said as he was thrown into a chair. Victor and Milos, both dressed in otaku garbs that had mainly Notoru things on it, started telling him about the manga series. Notoru Keizumu is only the most famous manga and anime in the world. It is known for its many twists and heart-warming scenes and more so for its fight scenes. Victor showed Naruto said scenes. It's about a 15-year-old boy who is a part of a samurai tribe. He is learning to become a samurai but is always at the bottom of his class. He has potential but not many see it because he is shunned for being of blood relation to a traitor of the tribe. Milos continued. He finds a friend, brother, and rival in one boy is at the top of the class, Kasu's. They go on joint missions often after graduating together and seem to be bonding. But fate would soon tear their friendship apart. Kasu's defected from the tribe. After being given a chance for fame and glory elsewhere, Notoru chased after him alone and after a long fight, steel against steel, Notoru couldn't bring himself to hurt his friend and so Kasu's got away. The first series ends with Notoru swearing to try harder to bring Kasu's back when they meet face to face later down the path. Victor said. And the first volume of the second series comes out in 3 months. Milos yelled as he fist-pumped. Naruto sat as he absorbed the useless information, at least, useless to the readers. After a few minutes, that seems familiar, Naruto said as he scratched his head. Where did he hear something similar happen before? Kyuubi snorted. Oh, Naruto, you silly boy. Here. Milos gave him the first volume of the series. Your first slice of paradise. The main character was grinning through his unruly orange hair as a boy with blue hair had his arms crossed in the back. Both had swords attached to their hips. He flipped it to the back. The phrase, I'll become the greatest samurai ever. Dugozuru. Written in bold letters. Why does this give me a strange sense of déjà vu? Naruto smiled anyway and took the offered book from the two otakus. Thanks. Naruto placed the book on his bed. They laughed as they talked about future plans and one particular question from Milos. Did you get me pictures of the girls? He asked hopefully. Naruto nodded as he handed them to Milos. Milos and Victor took one look at the girls and blushed. Milos stashed the photos in his pocket. Ooh, lunchtime. Milos looked at his watch before running off to the grand hall. Naruto and Victor smiled as they walked after him before he ate everything in the hall. Nothing could possibly ruin this serene atmosphere. Except maybe. She wanted to scream but the gag in her mouth prevented her from doing so. Tears flowed from her eyes as she looked at the monster in front of her. He had taken his hood off because he knew that she wouldn't be telling anyone anytime soon. No, she'll be gone by then. His grip on the knife slackened slightly as he felt a twinge of regret in his heart. She was just in the halls by coincidence when he happened to stroll by. He remembered hearing that she was a Muggle-born and instincts told him to act. Now she was gagged and bound from the shackled hanging from the ceiling. He sighed. He felt exactly the same when he did the ritual before. His eyes regained its dark luster as he moved forward. It would be over soon for her. He no longer felt the need to torture his subjects like before. Heavy rainfall splashed against the window outside that drowned out a poor girl's screams. Naruto walked down the hall as he made his way to the dining hall. He had been hearing rumors about a missing 6th year. Strange, Naruto thought. A missing 6th year. He entered the grand hall to see the usually, Milos stuffing his face and Victor eating leisurely next to him. Did you hear? Naruto asked as he sat down next to them. A 6th year's gone missing. Yeah, it's all over the school. Milos said. Victor nodded alongside him. Her friends told the teachers that she didn't return to the dorm 2 nights ago. Naruto leaned closer. Do you think it's connected to the events a few months ago? Maybe, Victor stated grimly. Milos slammed his hands on the table. We have to put a stop to this. The students stared at him. Milos grinned sheepishly as he apologized. How? We stock the halls for the person. Milos suggested. Yeah, and while we're at it, let's tell our teachers so we can get into trouble. No. They sat in defeat as they hung their heads. Victor's head snapped up. The map. Milos grinned. There we have it. We'll stay snug in our rooms and look at the map to see who's the kidnapper. But we won't necessarily know who that person is. Naruto muttered. Victor started. You can use your fancy ninja techniques, can't you? Right. I can make clones of myself and have them spy the corridor. We'll need communication devices though to be in contact. I can arrange that. Milos frowned. It'll take a while though. Thank God we aren't like Hogwarts, no electrical devices works there. Alrighty. As soon as we get them, we'll start investigating. Naruto, Victor and Milos slapped hands. They were only able to smuggle the devices in April during Easter, and by then several more people had gone missing. There were no real connections between the abductions, they varied from different houses. Several people also said that the suspicious boy that Naruto saw in the library, Jeremy Jetto, disappeared too. Their search in the corridors were not successful. Only the usual breaking of curfews, no strange kidnapping. Several weeks had gone by and it was almost the end of the year. Headmas Karkaroff had made it clear that the school would have to be closed if the kidnapping resumed, which it did. And since the perpetrator was not caught, the chances that this was Naruto's first and final year at Durmstrang was very high. When all hope was apparently lost, they were able to find something interesting on their escapade. Milos and one of Naruto's clone, unwillingly, went down to the kitchen at 3 in the morning for a snack. Milos saw the missing Jeremy snooping about with food in his hands before he disappeared around a corner. Clone Naruto had seen it too, and dispersed to warn the real Naruto. In their room, Naruto, who was sleeping with a piece of chocolate in his mouth, jumped awake as the memories from his clone returned to him. Looking to his right, Victor had nodded off on the ground. The others in the room were sound asleep, thankfully for silencing spells and earmuffs. Victor, wake up. Victor. He nudged him. Z's. Naruto kicked him. Victor jerked up. Naruto smiled. Oh, you're awake. Anything new? Victor rubbed the sleep from his eyes. Naruto nodded as he grabbed the earpiece to the communicator. Milos found Jeremy. He attached the headpiece. Sished. Naruto, Victor. Do you hear me? Ellipsis quote. Loud and clear. Where did Jeremy go? Ellipsis dot quote. Sorry, guys. I lost him. He vanished around the corner with weeks worth of food. That's where he went all those weeks ago. Victor stated. He would sneak into the kitchen after dark whenever he runs out of food. Do you think Jeremy was responsible for the abduction? Naruto asked both Victor and Milos. Possibly. Milos. Check the map and head up when the coast is clear, we'll devise a plan up here. Roger that, over and out, PSSHHT. The line disconnected. But, why would Jeremy kidnapping his fellow students? Victor asked. I have no clue. Naruto sighed. But I picked up a book that he dropped months before, it was Raider's roll book. Roll book. Victor's brows knitted together. It only contains every student's name in it. Was there anything else? Well, I found a piece of paper that had 2 words written on it. What words? Naruto paused in recollection. The words, Aperios Statua. It's a spell. It sounds oddly familiar though. Milos burst into the room gasping for breath. Hide the stuff. Raiders saw me. Hurry. And hide the stuff they did. They jumped in their respective beds and feigned sleep when they heard Raider creep into their room. He stood for a while before leaving and closing the door. When his footsteps gradually faded, they threw their covers off. That was close. Milos breathed out. Naruto and Milos nodded. So what's the plan, guys? Jeremy might be the cause of all the kidnapping, so it's up to us to capture him. Naruto said, full of determination. Milos gulped. What if he's dangerous? Naruto ignored him. Since we now know that Jeremy comes out of his secret place at least once a month, we'll have to continue with our surveillance. So we do as we did. But I think all 3 of us should be on the lookout because we might need each other. Victor said. We'll go separately of course. Vic, I think you should carry the map. Tell us if a teacher is near through the headpiece. Naruto looked at Milos and Victor. If any one of us sees Jeremy, we have to alert each other quickly for backup. Follow Jeremy into the secret place if you can. It'll be dangerous but it's our only chance at catching him. You up to it? They nodded. Naruto laid back in his bed as did the other 2. He pulled the covers over his head like he usually did when he had a lot on his mind. It'll be a long and dangerous way to end the school year. Naruto yawned. It was 2 months after they had seen Jeremy. Several more students were taken from right under their noses. And no hints to where they were. He closed the book Milos gave him and put it in his breast pocket. Naruto pressed his headpiece and put the microphone in front of his mouth. Milos, Victor, any signs of him? 2 responses came in the line. Milos, here. No signs of him yet on the east side. Victor, I don't see him in the West Hall. He should be out and about tonight. Naruto said into his microphone. Something moving in the shadows caught his eye. It moved swiftly and disappeared around a corner. I see something, Naruto whispered. He grabbed his wand and proceeded with precaution, stepping silently around the corner and thrust his wand out. Lumos, a beam of light protruded from the wand. The dark shape twitched before pouncing. Naruto was able to say, that it had fur before it sent him sprawling to the ground. Naruto froze. It was sitting on him and, licking his face. He shined the light up and saw that it wasn't Jeremy or a person. It was Zero. Zero. What are you doing here, boy? He got his answer when Zero dragged a large piece of roast beef to him. Quote. I leave you with Milos too much. Naruto sighed and pressed his headpiece again. False alarm. It was just Zero packing in food. Be careful, you're in the south hall where Jeremy was seen, Victor said seriously. Naruto replied, we haven't seen him in 2 months, maybe he woe. A hand had burst forth from the darkness and held him in a headlock. Naruto punched his attacker as they struggled against each other. Naruto's headpikes lay forgotten on the ground. Naruto lifted his wand to the person's face, but he had already finished casting a petrification spell. Naruto's hands and legs flailed as he was petrified by the assaulter's wand. Naruto bordered consciousness as he was dragged away into the dark abyss. This should be amusing. Let's see how he gets himself out of this. Haha. Zero whined as he clawed at the wall where they vanished. The headpiece buzzed. Naruto. What happened? Milos came running as the light from his wand illuminated the hallway. He couldn't care less if a teacher caught him right now. He skid to a stop as Victor came into his view. What happened? He breathed out as air refilled his lungs. Naruto's been taken. Whoa, where? He was in the south hallway. What should we do? I don't know. Tell a teacher. We'll get in trouble. Victor gave him a look. What's more important? Our friend's life or a month of detention? Milos seemed to be weighing it out. Victor reached over and smacked him over the head. Kidding. Victor rolled his eyes. I'll go alert the teachers. You head to the south hall and see if you can find any clues. Hurry. They ran their separate ways. Wah. He cracked his eyes open as he regained consciousness. There were no windows, so the only light came from candles located all around the dungeon. He was suspended by chains attached to the ceiling over a pit. He was fully clothed, so he was happy that Jeremy hadn't raped him in his sleep. You're awake, half-blood. Naruto squinted his eyes as he looked at the hooded figure. Who are you? Where the hell am I? You were tailing me, weren't you? He dropped his hood. Naruto's eyes widened. He knew it was Jeremy, but this person no longer looked like the boy he saw. He was taller, his face was an ill pale, and his had swirling markings all over his face and his exposed hands. His eyes glowed a sickly yellow and his hair was chalky white. Yeesh. New makeover. Jeremy's eyes darkened. He delivered a swift back conned as Naruto's head cocked to the side. Blood filled his mouth as he gasped for breath. That was not an average slap. He was as strong as Tsunade without her chakra manipulation. Not just an outer makeover. Oh, you did not just pimp slap me. Shut up. He held his hand up in a glorious way. This is true beauty, the beauty of power. Bestowed upon me for ridding the world of impurities. You mean your victims? Naruto spat. Jeremy cackled. In a sense, but you will be joining them soon, in the afterlife. And you think I'll let you kill me? How will you break free, Those chains prevent you from casting any spells even if you were able to do it without your wand. Naruto gave him a smirk. Oh, I guess you didn't do enough research because I'm not just a wizard. I'm a ninja. As he said that, he poofed away in a plume of smoke. Jeremy looked confused. What? Naruto grinned as he drove his fist into Jeremy's face. Pay back, bitch. Jeremy slammed into the ground as Naruto formed a hand sign. Cage Bunshin. 2 clones appeared next to him. The dungeon filled with laughter, however, as Jeremy slowly stood up again. Interesting. A half-blood ninja. How would you know if I'm a half-blood? Jeremy looked at him strangely. You were the one who found the book and spell I stole, didn't you? That spell is what the higher-ups use to see your blood purity. Wait, when you said, ridding the world of impurities, you mean? Correct, half-blood. I will rid the world of all who possess Muggle blood. I will liberate this world in the Dark Lord's image, a world of NLY pure bloods with a select few half-bloods as slaves. Quote ellipsis dot. You are one twisted little man and I'll be sure to stop you. You think you can stop me? With the power given to me by God, who your worship is no God. You'll only win over my dead body. Naruto took on a stance. I was counting on that. Jeremy whipped out his wand and fervently cast spells as Naruto dove behind a column. Crucio. A red jet shot out and hit the side of the column. Damn it. He saw that his clones were hiding behind different columns. Naruto mouthed to them, "Find my wand." They nodded, waiting for him to cause a distraction. Naruto concentrated chakra into his hand to form a swirling ball of chakra. He jumped out as a spell bounced of the wall. Rasengan. Jeremy, seeing the incoming danger, hit the ground. The swirling ball embedded into the wall, causing a large hole. Avada Kedavra. A green spelling propelled toward him. He put his hands up, waiting for death. It never came. He opened his eyes as one of his clones dispersed in front of him. Boss. His wand was hurled at him. He caught it as he ducked a spell. Putting the wand in his wand pouch, he went through some hand seals. Kaiten Gukakyu no Jutsu. Naruto blew out a large ball of fire at Jeremy. As the spell was about to hit, Jeremy exclaimed, Protega. A shield materialized and took the blow of the jutsu. As the smoke cleared, Naruto was already on him. Again, Rasengan. It successfully made contact this time. Jeremy flew into the wall on the other side of the dungeon. Naruto wiped the sweat off his forehead as he smiled in victory. It was short-lived as he saw Jeremy rise up from the smoke, covered with only minor cuts and injuries. That hurt. Jeremy rushed forward and slammed his fist into Naruto's gut, sending him sprawling on the ground. Jeremy poised for the final blow before Naruto shunshined out of danger's path. Why are you doing this, Jeremy? Jeremy looked like he was smacked in the face. Why else? For favor in my lord's eyes. I know he is still alive and he will rise again and reward me for my faithfulness. Now stay still, and die for me. Avada Kedavra. Oh, shit. Creating more clones, Naruto was CKY not to be killed by the flying spell. All of the rounds missed him by millimeters. He planned struck him. Hopefully I'm not killed by this. His clones were either being dispersed by the killing curse or from brute force. Jumping away from the fight, he exclaimed. Explosion time. Bunshin Bakua. One by one the remaining clones exploded. The ones in mid jumped, destroying the ceiling and made a massive hole. Naruto looked at where Jeremy was and sweat dropped. Lying in a crater and still not that injured was Jeremy. Why won't anything work? Naruto fumed as he stood there. Pissed. Hey. He heard Kyuubi whisper to him. What? I'm bored of watching this lame exchange, so how about a tip? What's the catch, furball? Just one. When this ordeal is done and over with, you need to bring me something so I won't be bored all the time. Can't you bend my mindscape to your will already? Yeah, but this is your mindscape and I have only so much control thanks to your blasted father. Deal. Now hurry and help. How about infusing your shinobi abilities with your magic tricks? Call it Kyuubi tactics. I'm such a genius. Naruto cut off the connection when Kyuubi started ranting about his awesomeness. Magic with jutsu, huh? Let's try. Kei's no Yaiba, and Sectum Sempra. Running out, Naruto caught Jeremy, who was trying to get up, by surprise as he took out his own wand. Sectum Sempra. Kei's no Yaiba. Naruto let the chakra flow into his wand like he did for the sword. He felt the attacking being mixed and powered up by the spell. He made cutting motions with the invisible sword, which left large gashes on Jeremy's now exposed torso. His cloak burned away due to his clone's detonation. Yada. Naruto did a victory dance as the Kyuubi snorted. Don't celebrate just yet. Jeremy was getting up, again. He lifted his hands up to the heavens and glowed. His hair grew longer and his muscles bulged. His skin turned gray. As he stood, Naruto saw that Jeremy's wand hand broken on impact and was in two pieces behind him. Behold, the might of the blood of the fold. Raj. Jeremy let out as he ran at Naruto with new life. He had grabbed one of his specially designed knives on the way. Naruto propelled him back with a few spells, but his leg was caught in the rocks that was everywhere and fell to the ground. His wand sliding harmlessly away and out of his reach. Fudo. He tried to yell out, but Jeremy was on him before that. The knife in his hands came down as Naruto shut his eyes. He felt the knife go right through his clothes and out and in. He felt like fainting again. He felt the knife going all the way through but felt only a little scrap on his skin. His chest hurt more when Jeremy missed his heart. He complemented his stabbing with additional punches. Blood stained his clothes and the cold floor. Even with the blood pounding in his ears he heard, "Expelliarmus." He felt Jeremy's weight leave him. He heard someone jumping down from the gaping hole he made earlier. A smaller figure loomed above him and helped him up. "You look worse for wear, Naruto. You all right?" he heard the figure say. He looked up to see Milos with Zero alongside him. Naruto sighed a breath of relief. Jeremy was back in his normal state, or back to when Naruto saw him for the first time in the dungeon. "For the last 3 years, I have been torturing and killing any who was not of pure blood. If you know what's good for you, Polyakov, you will leave and forget what you saw tonight." Milos didn't move. "Fine, then you two will join my other victims, in hell." He ran toward them. Zero ran to Naruto with his wand. Milos and Naruto shared a look. They nodded as if knowing what the other thought. They both aimed their wands at the ashen Jeremy. "Stupefy. Stupefy." Naruto made sure his was enhanced by a bit of chakra to make sure Jeremy lost consciousness. The red light burst forth and hit Jeremy square in the chest. He fell and fainted at the sheer force of the joint attack. Naruto limped to him to make sure he wasn't awake. Milos saw this and said, "Maybe you should stay still, you might open up your wounds." Naruto shook his head. "I'm fine, see." Naruto showed him that his wounds were healing. "I do wonder why when he stabbed me in the heart, it didn't hurt that much, it didn't seem to actually hit my heart." Naruto felt the left side of his chest. He felt something hard and pulled it out. It was the book Milos let him borrow. Milos grinned seeing that the book might have saved his life. "See, mangas are life-saving and life-changing. Sure." Zero trod over Jeremy's prone body and to a locked-up door behind. He yipped and scratched the door. Milos and Naruto followed and Naruto held his wand to the lock and said, "Alohomora." The door opened as Milos walked in first having lit his wand. He ran out a few minutes later. "Naruto, there are a few students in there. Still alive. Help me would ya?" They dragged the students out and woke them up with the "Renervate" spell. There were only 3. "Where am I? Don't hurt me. What is this?" Milos used his wand to amplify his voice, saying, "Oi. Oi. Calm down. I repeat, stay calm. Me and my friend will make sure that you are escorted safely out of this hellhole." They stood anxiously and quietly. "Okay, now if you could form a single file line and we see a roar," was heard behind everyone. "Uh-oh," Naruto murmured. He looked at Milos as the other students cowered behind them. "Petrified this time. Yeah. RAAAWWWRR. Petrificus totalis." They both exclaimed like before. As they did so they heard several people from above. "Stupefy." They all heard and 3 red beams shot down as their spell hit Jeremy at the same time. This time Jeremy was definitely down for the count. Everyone looked up to see Victor and several teachers and Headmaster Karkaroff. "We're saved. I can't believe I'm saying this but I love you teachers." Naruto and Milos diffused the situation by pressing their hands to their cheeks and squealing randomly. "Eep. Our saviors. Ha 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 ha." Raider jumped down and checked Jeremy's pulse and nodded to the teachers. He proceeded toward the students and helped everyone one by one out of the dungeon. As everyone left so were the trio. Karkaroff stood in their way. "Not you 3. They simultaneously gulped. "And what were you 3 doing out in ABO? Oot at night when there was a kidnapper loose?" Quote. Coming from Victor, Naruto and Milos respectively. Naruto stood in front. We were, sneaking down for food because we were afraid that the kidnapper would be looking for prey when we were all heading toward the hall for dinner but we were oh so hungry, so we snuck down." They all sweat bullets as they prayed he bought it. The headmaster stayed silent before nodding and scratching his chin. "Sneaking down only for food, alright. Though that still deserves punishment. 10 points each." He walked toward the other teachers surrounding Jeremy. They were inspecting him and trying to remove Zero who had taken a liking to Jeremy's head and clamped down on it, not letting go at all. Quote. That actually worked. The 3 sighed and made their way back to dorms as they were told, hoping to forget the entire ordeal. They were stood in front of their dormitory's statue and were about to enter when. Hold it. They saw Raider striding up to them. He stared down at them sternly. I know what you three did. You were trying to catch him on your own, weren't you? No, Professor. Of course not. We were just looking for food. I was hungry. They said at once. He gave them the evil eye. They hung their heads. All right. Yep. Maybe. Raider's gaze softened. I commend you on your courage, though what you did could have killed you. It shows that you are truly members of the Ignatius house. Now get up to bed. I'll see you in the morning. He walked off into the darkness. They all blinked at the same time before yawning. Lying in a nice and warm bed seemed like a pretty good option right now. The year was coming to a close as the end of year feast drew closer. Then again, when you're rooming with someone like Milos, it's all you hear. Thankfully, since the perpetrator was caught, school will continue next year. The teachers had used the obliviate spell on 2 of the kidnapped students in order to make them forget the things they saw. One did not see much and was left alone to recover slowly. And the gang, well, now they had something to tell their grandkids. Milos was in tears the day after because of how ruined his book was when it ended up saving Naruto from a lot of pain and literal heartache. Naruto happily smiled and repaired it for him. Victor had been curious as to how Naruto had recovered so quickly after all the bruises and broken bones he had. Naruto also grinned and said, "Because I'm boss, and I heal fast." Naruto was not happy with how he was sometimes easily taken out by Jeremy and was determined to work out more and train in his ninja techniques when summer arrived. Believe it. End of year feast. Headmaster Karkaroff had stood up and was delivering the final speech of the year to the students. Another year has come to pass, and what a strange year it has been. Not need to worry though, school will not be closed because due to fortunate events, the threat has been properly taken care of. Now, I believe that it is time to unveil which house has won the House Cup this year. Though I also have some points that need to be rewarded right now. Many students started to pay attention. From what Professor Halvard has spoken to me about, I believe the Ignatius house deserves to be rewarded 60 points for the heroic deeds of certain students. The Ignatius house applauded as did the other houses. Naruto, Milos and Victor looked at each other with grins plastered on their face. I think that places Ignatius in first place for the cup. Congratulations, Ignatius. The hall was filled with the cheers and hollers of the house and congratulatory claps from other houses. Karkaroff held his hand up signaling for silence. I would also like to announce the winner of the Inter-House Quidditch Cup. Winning by a small margin against the Ignatius house and 4 consecutive wins is the Dracorong house. Everyone had also started cheering for the other house on their victory. Now that all that is out of the way, let us enjoy the feast. As food started appearing on the table, a loud woot could be heard from Milos. As soon as the food appeared, it instigated Milos' food rampage. Munch, where are you guys going for summer vacation? Milos asked. The family might go to England or France. Victor stated. I'm going to visit a friend from Beauxbatons in France. Naruto said. The really hot one. Naruto nodded. You lucky dog, you. Milos gently pushed him. Milos feigned sadness. My parents are dragging me with them to Egypt because they're intrigued at how Muggles could build the pyramids. Maybe I'll pretend to be sick. As Milos continued to rant, Naruto was having a conversation with Kyuubi. Yo, Kyuubi. Kyuubi. You're having another hangover, aren't you? Single quote. Z's, come here whittle bunnies. Uncle Kyuubi wants to cuddle and eat you. Zzz, come closer. Kyuubi even wore a nice sundress for the occasion. Single quote ellipsis. This is so blackmail material. Naruto outwardly sighed. I hope you can't hear me, but thanks for the help before. If only he knew that Kyuubi was the reason why Naruto was so gullible to the petrification spell. As Naruto regained his senses from the outer world, the Kyuubi continued to slumber and mutter incoherent things that Naruto could not make out. You taste so yummy, whittle bunnies, burp, now where'd all my booze go? Come on, Milos. Don't cry. Victor patted him on the back. We'll see each other and keep in contact. We have the mirrors and cell phones. Don't cry, damn it. Victor had Ted to tear up and was giving Milos a manly embrace. Naruto was also tearing up, kind of. Naruto jumped into the hug all the while yelling. Milos, Victor. Oh, How our youthfulness burns brightly. A.L. Arch sunset scene had appeared behind them. Many bystanders were sweat dropping and gagging at the scene. My eyes burn. Purge. Purge. To their happiness, the three men let go. Call me, alright. Remember to use the mirrors. Alright. I'll see you when vacation is over. Wiping away tears, the three parted ways as the train had dropped them off at the Muggle train station. They walked off in different directions. They ran back to the same spot, seeing as they had walked off the wrong way. As the sun shined above them, they parted ways to their respective destinations. So bored, Naruto thought as he sat on the train to France. Because of all the hubbub at school, he had only realized later that Fleur had sent him mail telling him where to meet up with her and Alex when he got out of school. He was to meet them at a cafe near the Eiffel Tower. He scratched Zero's ear as something hit him. Gaara's scroll. He grabbed his bag on the overhead compartment and fished out the dull scroll. I wonder what Gaara wanted to tell me. I hope it wasn't something urgent. Yeah, 'cause you'd be months too late to reply then. Maybe he wants to tell you that your old village got blown up and everyone died. I'd love to see that. Ha ha ha. Oh, there's my alcohol. Kyuubi took a swig at the large sake container. Naruto ignored him and peeled open the scroll. His eyes read the contents and widened. Thanks for watching.